legal services during the Trump administration and beyond to cause that the president and Skadden both support. This is something we both support in relation to the following areas: assisting veterans and other public servants, including members of the military, law enforcement, and on and on. Number two, Skadden will commit to the mission of providing pro bono legal services to a wide variety deserving organizations and individuals. Skadden is committed to funding no fewer than 5 Skadden Fellows. That's a scholarship fund that they've set up. And number three, and again, we're going to put this out in much greater detail, that Skadden affirms and commits to merit-based hiring, promotion, and retention. Again, that will go on for a little while, and you'll read that. And Skadden will not deny any representation to clients, such as its members or members of politically disenfranchised groups who have not historically received legal representation from major national law firms, et cetera. So this is going out now, and I'm instructing my people to release it. And this just was announced, so you can, you'll get it in, this was essentially a settlement, and you'll be able to read that in great detail. We appreciate Skadden's coming to the table. As you know, other law firms have likewise settled the case. And it's a shame what's gone on is a shame, but we very much appreciate their coming to the table. But we're here for right now a different reason. It's a very important one, because today we're thrilled to swear in our interim U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey, Alina Habba. Congratulations, Alina. And I want to just congratulate, along with your husband, Greg, and your children, your wonderful parents who I've gotten to know over the years, great parents and a great family. So congratulations. And to Luke, Chloe, and Parker. That's great. You're proud, right? Of your father and your mother, right? Both. Not just your mom, right? Your father, too. He's done pretty well. He's a good guy and very successful man. I also want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi. She's been incredible, by the way. She's, I don't want to brag, but I've been watching her for the last couple of weeks, and she's been incredible. Thank you very much, Pam. And a couple of others who have been really outstanding. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thank you, Howard. Thank you very much. And I think I see Scott there. He has been, this is somebody at the Treasury. Nobody's going to outfox Scott, right? Nobody. And he's waiting for Liberation Day, right? Which is April 2nd. We wanted to do it April 1st, but that has some negative connotation. And I see Sebastian Gorka there. Thank you, Sebastian, very much. That's very much. Kevin, thank you very much. We have great people. Susie Wiles, most powerful woman in the world. She was just rated the most powerful woman in the world. If you think about it, I guess it's true when you think about it. Anyway, thank you, Susie. And Director Kash Patel. Where's Kash? Kash is fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Kash. So Alina is a proud New Jersey native. She was born and raised in Summit and now lives in Bernardsville with her family. Beautiful area of our country. After a career leading a successful law practice in the state, very successful, Alina joined my legal team several years ago and helped spearhead the effort to defeat the corrupt and grotesque weapon justice system. She was very effective at doing it. And I want to thank you for doing it. You took a lot of abuse, and now they're all sort of apologizing. So anyway, but we appreciate it. Great job you did. Thank you for allowing her to do it, because your life wasn't made any easier, was it? Huh? They even came after him. And they didn't come after the kids. They would have waited about a year or two. You're very lucky. You're very lucky. But through her work, Alina became a nationally recognized warrior for the fair, equal, and impartial rule of law. She also served as a key member of my successful 2024 campaign for president. You saw her doing a lot of explaining and doing it very well. And upon my inauguration, she joined the White House as senior staff. She was a senior staff member, as the counselor to the president, and she counseled me very well. Alina has been named to the Super Lawyers Rising Stars list every year since 2014, and also earned a spot on the top 100 lawyers in America numerous times. As a young person, it's very unusual to have achieved that. As U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina will work tirelessly to weed out crime and corruption and restore law and order to the Garden State, as we call it. It's the Garden State. It's a great place. I think it's highly underrated. It's a great place to be and to live, and we all love it. Under the last administration, violent crime in New Jersey, however, rose more than 60%. And under the last administration, violent crime throughout the country rose at levels that are higher than that and unacceptable. And we're bringing it down, and we're getting rid of a lot of bad people. They're being taken out. And we hope this court system that's become so active all of a sudden in trying to protect some very, very bad people of crime, they have to stop. They have to let us do the job. We were elected to do the job. They shouldn't be interfering in that. It's a very sad thing that's going on. Nobody can even believe it. They'd rather have them stay in our country. These are murderers in many cases and people about as bad as we've ever seen. And they have to let us do the job. They have to let Cash and Pam and everybody else do their job. Alina will take on the violence and the law-breaking in Newark, however, and Camden and all parts of New Jersey, and she'll be as good as it gets because there's a lot of bad things happening there, too. She'll stop the graft and corruption in Trenton, and she'll persecute human traffickers, gang members, illegal aliens, and criminal cartels to the fullest extent of the law. And between Pam and Alina, you don't want them after you, I can tell you. I watched Pam 2 days ago talking about what was so unfair to a patriot, what was happening. And she said, we're watching you, we're looking for you, and you're not going to get away with it. You did very well. I think a lot of that stuff has stopped. They watched and they said, who needs this, right, Pam? So thank you very much. Really amazing job that you're doing. So, Alina, I want to congratulate you now. I will ask Pam, our Attorney General, to come up and do the honors of swearing in. And this is a great day for law enforcement in our country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear.
I, Alina Habba, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
That I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any
Bueno, pues pendientes de la señal, pendientes de la declaración del presidente de Estados Unidos, pendientes de lo que diga Donald Trump. Precisamente seguimos hablando del presidente estadounidense. Les contamos que está convencido de la debilidad de Ucrania y desprecia a Volodymyr Zelensky y por eso quiere aprovechar más del acuerdo sobre el acceso a tierras raras en territorio del país eslavo. Es lo que informa The Times este viernes. El medio reseñaba que el inquilino de la Casa Blanca está enfurecido por los miles de millones de dólares en ayudas concedidas a Kiev por Joe Biden, por eso ha decidido recuperarlo todo y más. En este contexto, The Times señaló que negociadores de Estados Unidos parecen estar trabajando para obtener mayores concesiones de Ucrania antes de la firma del tratado. Precisamente seguimos mirando a Estados Unidos, seguimos contándoles que el secretario de Defensa estadounidense Pete Hegseth afirmaba este viernes que Washington desplegará armamento militar avanzado como misiles antibuque en Filipinas para reforzar la disuasión en un contexto de crecientes tensiones entre Manila y Pekín. Decía, acordamos que Estados Unidos desplegará capacidades avanzadas adicionales en Filipinas. Esto incluye el uso de sistemas de misiles Némesis y de vehículos de superficie no tripulados, en lo que apuntaba en una rueda de prensa. Pendientes de Donald Trump, de las amenazas a China, les contamos que la primera ministra italiana Giorgia Meloni ha expresado su apoyo al vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance, señalando que está de acuerdo con sus críticas del bloque comunitario. En una entrevista para Financial Times, la jefa del gobierno italiano afirmaba que se solidariza con el ataque verbal del alto funcionario de Estados Unidos pronunciado en la conferencia de la seguridad de Múnich en febrero. Durante su intervención, Vance acusaba a Europa de abandonar su compromiso con la libertad de expresión y la democracia. Decía Meloni: tengo que decir que estoy de acuerdo, llevo años diciéndolo, Europa se ha perdido un poco a sí misma. Hacía hincapié en las críticas del propio inquilino de la Casa Blanca, Donald Trump. Precisamente volvemos a conectar con Donald Trump, el presidente de Estados Unidos. Estamos a pocos días de 2 de abril. Este es el mensaje de Trump.
We'll see what happens, but we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, you know, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant, but I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And I don't blame them as much as I blame the people that stood, in this case, I can say the men, because so far they've been all men, haven't they? But the men that sat right there and behind the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk, you know. I don't know if you know, you have a choice of 7 desks. The Resolute is the one I like, but some chose other ones, but they sat right behind a desk right in this location. And they let our country be hurt very badly. But I didn't do that. So, but we had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, how are the talks with India on tariff going on, and what is the expectation from India? How much do you want?
Well, as you know, Prime Minister Modi was here just recently, and we've always been very good friends. India is one of the highest tariffing nations in the world. You know that. I know. Thank you for shaking your head, but it's brutal. It's brutal. They're very smart, and he's a very smart man and a great friend of mine, actually. And we had very good talks. I think it's going to work out very well between India and our country. Very, very well. And I want to say you have a great Prime Minister.
Mr. President, there's been a very serious earthquake in Burma, Myanmar today, with up to several hundred killed.
Yeah.
The military regime there has asked for help from anybody.
Yeah, we're going to be helping. We've already alerted the people. Yeah, it's terrible what's happened. It's helping. We've already spoken with the country. Okay, please.
Mr. President, yesterday you asked Representative Stefanik to stay in her seat. Can you explain your reason for that? Did it have anything to do with the tight polling in the Florida district that former Representative Waltz held?
Well, I think we're doing, I think we had, as you know, we have a few elections going on. And she is phenomenal, number one. She is a friend of mine, and she was going to go to the United Nations. And I said, look, there's a lot of room for doing that or something else. But she's very popular in her district, and I didn't want to take a chance. I don't even know who else is running. I assume somebody else would have been running. But if she runs, she can't be, you never want to say can't be beaten, but I think can't be beaten. She's very, very well-liked and very smart. And I said, Lise, would you do me a favor? We cannot take a chance. We have a slim margin. We don't want to take any chances. We don't want to experiment. And she polls like I do. I won her district, as you know, by a lot of points. And she also does very well there. When it comes to Florida, you have 2 races, and they seem to be good. It's a Trump plus 32 area. The one thing is they're spending like $12 million, and our candidate doesn't have that kind of money, spending much less than that, like maybe 1/12, about $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million. So the airwaves are blanketed, and you never know what happens in a case like that. I won it by 32 points, and it's very, very strong. It used to be Democrat, but when I came along, they liked me for whatever reason. You'll have to explain that, but they liked me, and we're way up. But you don't know what happened. Second district, who seems to be in pretty good shape, but likewise, he's being outspent about 5-1. So we don't want to take any chances. So I went to Elise and I said, Elise, do you mind very highly rated person. You know, she was a real leader. And she will be again. I spoke with Mike Johnson. They're going to put her in a high leadership position. But will you mind staying in Congress? Because we don't want to take any chances. And it's as simple as that. It's basic politics. It's politics 101. She's very popular. She's going to win. And somebody else will probably win too, because we did very well there. I did very well there. But the word probably is no good. So I really appreciate her doing it. She's doing me a big favor when she does it, because she was all set to go to the United Nations, and she would have dealt with Putin and Zelensky and everybody else, and she would have been very effective. But we really don't want to take any chances, because it is tight.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. You and your team apprehended a top 3 leader in the violent gang MS-13 yesterday, just 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. What has made you and your team so effective in finding, locating, apprehending, and deporting these violent, illegal migrants?
I love this guy. I wish more people would ask questions like that. But thank you. That's very nice. I appreciate it. And they happen. All you're doing is being fair with you when you ask a question in that way. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and all of the rest of law enforcement. I think we have to include ICE and Border Patrol, you know, Paul of Border Patrol, the whole group from Border Patrol. They're so incredible, and it's, you know, dangerous stuff, hard stuff, and it's really an unforced error, because these people were allowed into this country. They shouldn't have been in this country. They would have never been in this country. We're getting rid of some of the worst criminals in the world. They came out of jails and mental institutions from all over the world, but Pam and the whole group, and Kash, who's here, and it's so good to have him. I see him all over. He's working 24 hours a day, but the job they've done is incredible. And they caught one of the worst criminals in the world, I guess, in terms of evilness. You don't get any worse than the MS-13 guys and the Tren de Aragua guys. It's you could flip a coin. It's a rough group. And, you know, the big thing is they have to be able to do their job. I know I was watching it on television like you, and I saw the home that he lived in a good area, but boy, they had a lot of weaponry in there, right? Highly sophisticated, really brutal stuff. So I appreciate the question, and I just want to thank Kash and Pam and the whole group for doing a fantastic, and the local law enforcement who's been so terrific, even first responders. So I want to thank everybody, and thank you very much.
Mr. President, I want to say, first of all, happy Women's Month. You do so much for women by, first of all, keeping men out of women's sports, and you platform so many.
That was an easy one. That was crazy.
You platform so many great women, like your chief of staff, Susie Wiles. You also have Caroline Levitt doing a great job as press secretary. Now Alina will be joining as well. Since Democrats seem to struggle answering this question, I wanted to ask you, what is a woman, and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me, because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances. She has a quality. A woman is a person who's much smarter than a man, I've always found. A woman is a person that doesn't give a man even a chance of success. And a woman's a person that in many cases has been treated very badly, because I think that what happens with this crazy issue of men being able to play in women's sports is just ridiculous and very unfair to women and very demeaning to women. And that's got to be about a 94%. I read today it was a 94% issue. And I watched the other day, a congressman, a Democrat congressman, fighting for the fact that men should be allowed to compete essentially in women's sports. And I say, I hope they keep that going, because they'll never win another election. That's a big deal. But women are basically incredible people, do so much for our country. And we love our women, and we're going to take care of our women. Yeah.
What was your reason for pardoning Trevor Milton?
Highly recommended by many people, that was taken advantage of. He did a business deal like in Utah, as I have it. And I think he was exonerated, and then they brought him into New York. We had a rough road. I mean, he was exonerated. It was a big celebration. Again, I don't know him, but they say it was very unfair. And they say the thing that he did wrong was he was one of the first people that supported a gentleman named Donald Trump for president. He supported Trump. He liked Trump. I didn't know him, but he liked him. It was in Utah, and they went after him. They went after his family. They went after his businesses. And he was, I believe, exonerated. And then they went after him again, and they brought him this time into Manhattan. And he had nothing to do with Manhattan. And they got him. And I said, that's unfair. There are many people like that. They support Trump, and they went after him. You don't realize this is a vicious group of people that were in this office before us. This is a vicious group. They're violent. What they were doing to people, and you could go story after hundreds and even thousands of stories. And they went after this man. And when I heard about it, I said, nope, not going to happen. They destroyed 5 years of his life. He fought for 5 years of his life, and he did nothing wrong. And he's a good person. And basically, I had these fantastic recommendations about him from people that you know very well, all top-of-the-line people. They thought it was a horrible thing. There are many such cases, by the way, many such cases.
Should Americans buy cars now if they want to avoid higher prices?
Thank you, Mr. President. Have you spoken with Vladimir Putin about buying weapons from Iran and from North Korea?
Not about specifically that. No, I haven't.
Well, that seems to be an issue that you want to make important.
Well, I'm making all issues important. You got a lot of important issues. You also have the children issue that's important. You know, so a lot of children are living in Russia right now. That's a horrible situation that would have never taken place if I was and the country is being decimated. But, you know, they're losing 2,500 on average young men, mostly men, almost in all cases men, actually, but young men every single week, 2,500. And they're not from our country. They're from Ukraine and they're from Russia. But it's human lives. And if we can get it stopped, and I think we're making progress. But there's a lot of ill will between the parties.
Should Americans buy cars now if they want to avoid higher prices? And then just a follow-up.
No, I don't think so. I think you're going to have a country that's going to boom. I just spoke to Tim Cook of Apple. He's investing $500 billion in the United States, which he would have never. He told me, I would never have done it if you lost the election, and I would have never done it if there wasn't a tariff system that is a incentive for people to come. And remember, there are no tariffs. All you have to do is do your work right here. If you have your company here, if you build your product, make your car, or whatever it is you're making, no tariffs. And we're going to have, I think, Scott, I would say we're close to $4 trillion, even going close to $5 trillion. Now, we haven't had that for years. If you add up years, they haven't invested like that. And here we are in 2 months. We think we're up to close to $5 trillion of investment. They're going to build car plants. They're already building. Many of them have already started. And if you build a car in the United States, and one thing that I just spoke with John Thune about, I just spoke to Mike Johnson about, Speaker, we're going to do something that has never been done in this country before. I'm very proud to say it was my idea. And so sometimes a simple idea, they say, how'd you think of that one? It's so simple. It was never done. If you buy a car in the United States that's made in the United States, if it's manufactured here, when you borrow money, if you borrow money, you have interest payments, we're going to let you deduct the interest payment for income tax reasons. And I think that's going to more than pay for itself. I think people are going to be, they've never had a deduction. You know, deductions are supposed to be for like rich people, and it's unfair to have that. But rich people are, I think I know more about deductions than any human being on earth. But, you know, the truth is that people that are middle income people that buy a car and actually have to borrow money, they're going to now get an interest deduction on their car if it's made in the United States. If it's made someplace else, that won't take place. But car companies, as you know, are already expanding and building new plants. They've already started. And I think you're going to see numbers. Howard, you're seeing it. And Scott, you're seeing it. You're going to see numbers, the likes of which you've never seen before. Yeah, please go ahead.
The vice president is in Greenland right now. Do you have plans to expand U.S. military presence in Greenland? Is that
Getting along very well with Greenland. We get along very well with Denmark. We've always had a good relationship. Denmark does a lot of business in the United States. We don't do so much there, but they do a lot of business in the United States. And I think they want to see, I think everybody wants to see that work out. We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can. If you look at Greenland right now, if you look at the waterways, you have Chinese and Russian ships all over the place. And we're not going to be able to do that. We're not relying on Denmark or anybody else to take care of that situation. And we're not talking about peace for the United States. We're talking about world peace. We're talking about international security. And right now, you look at it, you have warships all over the place going through right along Greenland. We're not going to let that happen. We cannot let that happen. Or if it's going to happen, we have to be protective of our country. And more important, really protection, not only of our country, of the world. So Greenland is very important, and modern day weaponry makes Greenland 100 years ago, less so. But also,
Would you like to visit Greenland?
if you notice also some of those, you could call them roadways, okay? They're water roadways, but some of those areas are opening up, and they're opening up icebreakers out there. They're opening them, and by just nature, they're opening up, and they're headed right into China, right into Russia. And we have no choice. The answer is he's there with his wonderful wife, Usha. They're there right now. They landed a couple of hours ago, and they will represent us well. But Greenland's very important for the peace of the world, not us, the peace of the entire world. And I think Denmark understands it. I think the European Union understands it. And if they don't, we're going to have to explain it to them.
Would you like to visit Greenland?
Iranian
Mr.
drones are
President?
attacking
Thank you, Mr.
Ukraine every
President.
day.
That's it.
Iranian drones are attacking and killing Ukrainians every day. Why aren't you doing something about that?
Well, we're going to see what happens with that. I'm getting reports on that, and we're looking at a report. You're right. They make a lot of drones. Iran makes a lot of drones. They make very effective drones, too. They do very effectively at some things, but Iran is very high on my list of things to watch. And as you probably know, I sent them a letter just recently, and I said, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran. And I don't want that to happen. Big preference, and I don't say this through strength or weakness. My big preference is we work it out with Iran. But if we don't work it out, bad things are going to happen to Iran. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Come on, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Quickly,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Pendientes de las declaraciones del presidente de Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, hablando sobre sus relaciones con Canadá. Su llamada con Mark Carney hablaba ahora sobre la importancia de Groenlandia. Dice que no pueden permitir que pasen por ahí buques de guerra. En cuanto a las conversaciones con Ucrania, dice que van en buen camino, que han hecho progresos en las últimas horas. Vamos a hacer una pausa, 2 minutos. Enseguida seguimos con la información en Negocios Televisión.
¿Puede privatizarse la democracia? Quizá es esa la pregunta que nos tenemos que hacer todos. Un globalismo que afecta a todo lo que sustenta nuestras vidas. Realidad económica tangible, necesaria de analizar. Esa necesidad de analizar el globalismo desde el punto de vista absolutamente económico, tangible y real.
¿Sabes lo importante de tener la mejor información para la toma de decisiones? ¿Sabes? En esas reuniones privadas en las que se ve una información clave para poder luego tomar esa decisión. Es lo que queremos en el club al que te invitamos ya, en el club en el que Negocios Televisión lanza para que puedas tener toda la información, la mejor información y tomar las mejores decisiones. ¿Cómo crees que va a evolucionar el euro en un entorno en el que todo el mundo inversor piensa que camina hacia la paridad? ¿Cómo le va a afectar el fenómeno Trump? ¿Cómo le va a afectar al conjunto europeo? Inscríbete aquí abajo.
¿Te preocupa que tu inquilino no pague el alquiler? Sabemos que esto puede ser un desafío. Aunque los gastos son fáciles de calcular, el verdadero reto es gestionar la falta de pago por parte del inquilino. SEAC te ofrece una garantía de renta asegurada hasta que recuperes tu vivienda, pase el tiempo que pase. Relájate. SEAC se encarga de todo. Alquila tranquilo. SEAC responde.
¿Qué cuento quieres hoy? ¿Te cuento uno de los míos? ¿El del farmacéutico? ¿O el de María, la abogada?
El de Ana, la arquitecta.
Vale. Eres una niña que soñaba con crear los edificios más impresionantes de la Tierra. Se pasaba el día dibujándolos. Sabía que algún día acabarían llegando a lo más alto de cada ciudad. Y que cualquier persona...
Cada profesional tiene detrás una historia increíble. Creer en ella es lo que de verdad cuenta. Arquia Banca, el banco de los profesionales.
Silver Gold Patrimonio nace en 2018 con el objetivo de innovar en el mercado de los metales preciosos de inversión, ofreciendo nuevas alternativas para que cualquier persona, familia o empresa pueda entrar en el fantástico mundo de los metales de inversión de forma sencilla y acompañada por consultores expertos en el sector. Silver Gold Patrimonio quiere avanzar contigo.
Seguimos en Negocios Televisión, pendientes de la última hora, mirando lo que decía el presidente de Estados Unidos, un Donald Trump que advertía a Irán después de este plazo de 2 meses para llegar a un acuerdo nuclear o un ataque por parte de Israel o de Estados Unidos. Miramos también a Rusia. El presidente ruso Vladimir Putin proponía en las últimas horas un gobierno temporal en Ucrania. Hablaba de un auspicio por parte de la ONU y tiene la respuesta del secretario general Antonio Guterres. Afirmaba este viernes el apoyo de la organización a Kiev después de que el presidente ruso Vladimir Putin sugiriera explorar la opción de un gobierno interino en Ucrania bajo los auspicios de la ONU. Decía Guterres, Ucrania tiene un gobierno legítimo y obviamente eso debe ser respetado. Esta es la respuesta de Guterres a la propuesta de Vladimir Putin.
First of all, the Ukraine has a legitimate government, and so obviously that must be respected. Second, we have had some contacts with the US. Rebecca Greenspan has had some contacts, but the UN for the moment is not part.
Seguimos mirando a Rusia. Les contamos que el jefe adjunto de la misión diplomática de Canadá en Moscú ha sido citado este viernes al Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores ruso. Ha recibido una nota diplomática en relación a los comentarios rusófobos, dice, de la embajadora de Canadá en Rusia, después de que depositara flores en un monumento a la madre patria en el cementerio de San Petersburgo. Decía literalmente que al diplomático se le dijo que era inaceptable mencionar el asedio de Leningrado en una conexión tendenciosa con el pacto Molotov-Ribbentrop y la conferencia de Yalta. Se destaca que la insinuación contenida en el mismo es blasfema y ofensiva para su pueblo y la memoria de las víctimas del asedio, es lo que reza el comunicado del organismo. También miramos a la portavoz del Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores de Rusia, María Zaharova. Ha comentado el ataque de Kiev a la estación de medición de gas de la ciudad de Sucha, en la provincia rusa de Kursk, que se llevó a cabo este viernes. Decía, hay razones para creer que la orientación y el objetivo de los ataques se llevaron a cabo a través de sistemas de satélite franceses, mientras que las coordenadas fueron introducidas y lanzadas por especialistas británicos. La orden se dio desde Londres, es lo que apuntan declaraciones a la prensa. Según la vocera, el terror desatado por Kiev contra el sector energético ruso es una prueba más de su falta de compromiso. Como es sabido, dice Zelensky, apoyó públicamente la moratoria propuesta por los presidentes ruso y estadounidense sobre el no lanzamiento de ataques contra instalaciones energéticas rusas y Ucrania, pero no hizo nada por aplicarla. Precisamente miramos al presidente de Ucrania, Volodymyr Zelensky. Dice que aceptaría negociar con cualquier otro representante de Rusia, además de Vladimir Putin. Dice que no reconocerá la ayuda militar de Estados Unidos como préstamos y además apunta que han recibido un borrador de un nuevo acuerdo sobre minerales de Estados Unidos, que es un documento completamente diferente al del marco anterior. En este sentido, el propio Zelensky dice que la propuesta de Vladimir Putin para un gobierno temporal en Ucrania con el auspicio de la ONU es una táctica, es una estratagema, dice, del presidente ruso Vladimir Putin para postergar la paz. Miramos también a la OTAN. Les contamos que el Servicio Federal de Inteligencia alemán y las Fuerzas Armadas del país estiman que Rusia considera a Occidente como un enemigo sistémico. Está aumentando su poder militar y preparándose para una confrontación a gran escala con la OTAN. Se argumenta que Putin estaría dispuesto a usar la fuerza militar para lograr sus objetivos. La evaluación, también publicada por el Süddeutsche Zeitung, el WDR y el NDR, sugieren que Putin no se conformará solo con Ucrania. Para finales de la década es posible, dice, que Rusia haya creado todas las condiciones necesarias para librar una guerra convencional a gran escala. El servicio de inteligencia lituano considera que Rusia todavía no está en condiciones de librar una guerra convencional a gran escala contra la OTAN a medio plazo. Sin embargo, es posible una acción militar limitada contra uno o más países de la OTAN. Se supone que Putin estaría planeando poner a prueba el artículo 5 de la OTAN. ¿Hasta qué punto los países de la OTAN se toman en serio la obligación de proporcionar asistencia según este artículo en caso de emergencia? El informe de la BND indica que si bien 3/4 partes de los soldados y el equipo rusos de las regiones fronterizas del Báltico se encuentran actualmente en Ucrania, la Fuerza Aérea y la Armada se encuentran en alerta máxima. Si la guerra en Ucrania termina, las unidades rusas serán redistribuidas a la región. Pendientes de la OTAN, precisamente miramos al vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance, en Groenlandia, poniendo en juego el artículo 5 con la duda de si Trump, desde Estados Unidos, va a anexarse o no a Groenlandia. Vemos ya a su vicepresidente.
It's great, thank you. Hey guys. You guys come to the bus. Right here. Good. Alright, everyone ready? 3, 2, 1, more. Be cool. Guys, yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Of course. I'm telling you, Anna, you're going to come back here. Commander. Great. Great. Well, we appreciate you. You gonna look at the board? Is that the plan? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Right. I got it. Sorry.
Ha llegado desde Groenlandia, donde el número 2 de Estados Unidos, el vicepresidente J.D. Vance, está haciendo una visita a las bases militares estadounidenses. Vamos a echar ahora un vistazo a los mercados. Ya os avanzábamos antes, las correcciones, severas correcciones que estamos viendo tanto en Europa como en Estados Unidos. Todo por el miedo a la política, a la guerra arancelaria de Donald Trump contra el mundo. Vemos ahora mismo que las correcciones, de hecho, han empeorado en todos los índices de Estados Unidos. Vemos al Dow Jones de Industriales, ojo, cayendo 1,7% en este momento, 41.582 puntos. El Dow Jones, que dentro de los componentes, que lleva, bueno, desde la apertura, pero es verdad que durante toda la jornada las correcciones han ido empeorando, ¿no? Vemos dentro de los peores valores, por ejemplo, pues a Amazon, que está dejando casi un 5%, Goldman Sachs 3,6 abajo, Nike 3,6 también, Boeing, Caterpillar, Microsoft, American Express, todas estas, JP Morgan, todas cayendo entre un 3 y un 4,5%. Se salva dentro del Dow Jones solo 6 valores, Merck & Co, un 2,5% de revalorización, y a partir de aquí, solo un 0,8% de ganancia. Johnson & Johnson, United Health, Amgen, Coca-Cola y Verizon. El resto en negativo en el en el Dow Jones de Industriales, perdón. Nos vamos ahora al S&P 500, que corrige todavía más, un 2% de corrección en este índice de Wall Street. S&P que se deja ese 2%, 5.577 puntos. Ojo, tenemos a Lululemon, han empeorado las perspectivas para este año, cae casi un 15% Lululemon, pero es que también la tecnológica Palantir, abajo un 6%. On Semiconductor, 5,8%, casi un 6% también de corrección. Warner Bros., 5,5% abajo. Dell, la tecnológica, MetLife, PayPal, Ralph Lauren, Delta Airlines. Estamos viendo correcciones en todos los sectores en este momento. Los aranceles de este miércoles, que van a entrar, recordemos la fecha de lo que llama el gabinete Trump, la administración Trump, como el día de la liberación, es este 2 de abril, este próximo miércoles. Y Trump no se echa atrás. Está diciendo claramente que esto sigue adelante. Terminamos el repaso de los mercados con el Nasdaq 100, el índice tecnológico de Estados Unidos, que en este momento se deja casi un 2,64%. En este momento lo estamos viendo, las velas, lo ven en pantalla, las correcciones que estamos viendo de toda la jornada. También es verdad que ha habido un dato de PCE deflactor, en línea con lo esperado en la tasa general, pero es verdad que la tasa subyacente ha empeorado una décima, ha aumentado una décima más de lo esperado. No es demasiado, pero sí que puede dar una pista negativa a los próximos movimientos de política monetaria de Estados Unidos. Y sobre todo en este momento de gravísima incertidumbre en los mercados. La peor palabra para los inversores. Además de Lululemon, que se está dejando casi un 15% también en el Nasdaq 100, tenemos a MicroStrategy. Strategy ahora, han cambiado el nombre hace poco, Strategy, compañía que desde el año 2020 era una compañía de software que, como ya saben, centra su estrategia en que en la tesorería compran Bitcoin. Esa es su gran estrategia. Pues claro, es una empresa que ha subido en mayor porcentaje, en mayor proporción que Bitcoin en el último año, pero también es verdad que es una empresa que está muy ligada a lo que haga la criptorreina. Y si hoy, por ejemplo, vemos un peor dato de PCE, vemos más incertidumbre en los mercados, los activos de riesgo disminuyen, como es el caso de Bitcoin, pues empresas que dependen completamente de Bitcoin, pues también. También, ojo, veíamos esta semana la noticia de GameStop, compañía de venta física de videojuegos que no ha hecho rápidamente un cambio hacia otros sectores, se han quedado obsoletos con la digitalización de los videojuegos. También esta semana anunciaban que van a introducir Bitcoin dentro de su tesorería. La indefinición y sobre todo la indefinición de lo que va a ser sus movimientos, sus pasos futuros, han hecho que hayamos visto correcciones de doble dígito en GameStop. Pero, centrándonos en lo de hoy, MongoDB, Palantir, On Semiconductor, Warner Bros., todas estas en el Nasdaq 100 cayendo pues más de un 5%. Caídas un 5% en grandísimas. Tesla, por ejemplo, que se había salvado esta semana de las correcciones por el arancel del 25% al sector de los automóviles. Pues Tesla también cayendo casi un 4%. Por el otro lado, veamos quién se salva. AppLovin, AstraZeneca, Exelon son las que se salvan hoy. Vemos algunas energéticas y algunas farmacéuticas que se salvan. Veremos cómo se comportan porque, por ejemplo, el sector farmacéutico también está entre los sectores que ha hablado ya Donald Trump a los que va a aplicar más aranceles. Vamos ahora a repasar un poco algunas noticias de la jornada. Hoy hemos conocido un poco otras líneas por donde va a ir, o las líneas principales en las que se va a centrar el gobierno germano de Friedrich Merz. Ya sabíamos esto porque desde su campaña electoral, Merz, centro-derecha germana, ya iba dando pistas de cuáles iban a ser sus pasos o en lo que se iban a centrar sus políticas. Ha hablado de aumento de gasto en defensa, evidentemente, pero ha hablado un poco de los puntos principales. Ya ganó las elecciones Friedrich Merz, ya saben, el próximo canciller germano. Bueno, pues entre los temas a debate se encuentra pues una propuesta de ahorro a través de recortes masivos de empleo en los ministerios federales y en el Bundestag. Lo que está diciendo es recortes masivos en la administración germana. Queremos sanear las cuentas. Todo esto y serias políticas migratorias. Le escuchamos.
Eine ist die Migration. Dazu haben wir im Sondierungspapier bereits einige Verabredungen getroffen. Ich finde das gut. Es ist uns gelungen, einige Themen schon miteinander zu vereinbaren, die in die richtige Richtung gehen. Da gibt es noch einige Einzelfragen, über die wir noch sprechen müssen. Aber die Richtung stimmt. Insbesondere das gemeinsame Ziel ist geeint, die Zahl der irregulär nach Deutschland kommenden Migranten schnell und nachhaltig zu senken. Das zweite Thema wird die Wettbewerbsfähigkeit unserer Volkswirtschaft sein. Wir haben eine strukturelle Wachstumsschwäche in Deutschland, die seit Jahren andauert, eigentlich schon seit mindestens einem Jahrzehnt. Wir müssen da raus und dazu werden wir konkrete Vorschläge diskutieren. Wir müssen uns auch über das Grundverständnis noch einmal austauschen. Sind wir uns einig darüber, woran das liegt? Sind das vor allem die Kostenbelastungen? Sind das die Steuern, die Sozialversicherungsbeiträge, die Energiekosten, die Bürokratiekosten? Darüber werden wir im Detail zu sprechen haben. Und dann müssen wir über die Haushaltsführung sprechen, über den Bundeshaushalt, nicht nur 2025, da muss ja noch ein Haushalt gemacht werden, sondern auch über die Jahre 26, 27, 28, die ganze mittelfristige Finanzplanung. Ich nenne das deshalb, weil uns einige größere Herausforderungen bevorstehen in der Haushaltsführung. Wir werden
Cita anual que ya inició en el año 2000, ¿no? Está Xi Jinping, el presidente chino, pidiendo, facilitando, haciendo un llamamiento a multinacionales de todo el mundo y atrayendo, queriendo atraer inversión a China. Por parte europea, por ejemplo, en esta lista han participado Siemens, Sanofi, Mercedes-Benz, DHL, Maersk, también estadounidenses, algunas bien representadas. Blackstone, Qualcomm, Pfizer, FedEx, Otis. El tema de este año, liberar la dinámica de desarrollo para un crecimiento estable de la economía mundial. Así hablaba el líder chino sobre la incertidumbre actual, las políticas arancelarias de Trump y las relaciones Estados Unidos-China que preocupan a los mercados.
这些年，外商来华投资还遭遇地缘政治因素干扰，这涉及国际政治、外交。我经常讲，吹灭别人的灯不会让自己更加光明。 阻挡别人的路，最终只会把自己的路给堵住。对于大家比较关心的中美关系问题，我们始终认为，中美关系保持稳定、健康、可持续发展，符合两国人民根本利益。 中美经贸关系本质是互利共赢，经贸摩擦应该通过平等对话磋商。
Será el momento en el que, uno de los momentos, Xi Jinping queriendo atraer la inversión extranjera a China, todo esto en un momento, pues en contraposición total del presidente del gobierno de Donald Trump con esa guerra arancelaria contra todo el mundo. Ahora vamos a conocer una noticia en clave de sostenibilidad de la mano de Nordea.
Nordea Asset Management le ofrece la noticia ESG del día.
El Departamento de Turismo del Consell de Mallorca ha celebrado hoy en el Auditori Samanigá de Cala Millor un nuevo foro de gobernanza y sostenibilidad turística en Mallorca, en una de las principales zonas turísticas de la isla y el primero de los que se van a celebrar a lo largo de todo este 2025 en las diferentes zonas de Mallorca. Durante toda la jornada, según ha indicado la institución insular en un comunicado, los más de 100 asistentes han podido escuchar, participar y debatir sobre las estrategias y objetivos de futuro que la Dirección Insular de Turismo, de creación de esta legislatura, enfocada para la gobernanza y sostenibilidad, tiene para Mallorca.
Nordea Asset Management le ha ofrecido la noticia ESG del día.
Pequeña parada publicitaria y ahora comienza a las 7 el cierre de Wall Street con Alma Navarro.
Silver Gold Patrimonio nace en 2018 con el objetivo de innovar en el mercado de los metales preciosos de inversión, ofreciendo nuevas alternativas para que cualquier persona, familia o empresa pueda entrar en el fantástico mundo de los metales de inversión de forma sencilla y acompañada por consultores expertos en el sector. Silver Gold Patrimonio quiere avanzar contigo.
Mudarte de ciudad es un gran cambio y alquilar tu casa puede parecer arriesgado. ¿Estará tu vivienda protegida? Con SEAC, olvídate de preocupaciones. Nosotros garantizamos tu renta pase lo que pase. Disfruta de tu nueva etapa con total confianza. Alquila tranquilo. SEAC Responde.
¿Qué cuento quieres hoy? ¿Te cuento uno de los míos? ¿El del farmacéutico? ¿O el de María, la abogada?
El de Ana, la arquitecta.
Vale. Eres una niña que soñaba con crear los edificios más impresionantes de la Tierra. Se pasaba el día dibujándolos. Sabía que algún día acabarían llegando a lo más alto de cada ciudad. Y que cualquier persona...
Cada profesional tiene detrás una historia increíble. Creer en ella es lo que de verdad cuenta. Banca, el banco de los profesionales.
Vuélvete máster de tu futuro. Obtén tu Master of Finance con doble titulación de Tulane University, Estados Unidos y de UFM, en Madrid.
El futuro te está llamando. En menos de 15 minutos puedes estar operando con futuros sobre Nasdaq, S&P, oro y mucho más con AvaTrade, un broker que habla tu idioma. Descubre las ventajas de AvaTrade y disfruta de hasta 100 operaciones sin comisiones. Registro rápido y sencillo, transacciones instantáneas, operaciones seguras. El futuro comienza ahora. AvaTrade.
¿Quieres dominar la inteligencia artificial sin complicaciones? Future Skills Labs presenta su revolucionario curso Inteligencia Artificial Generativa para Profesionales, diseñado para adaptarse a tu ritmo de vida. Lo innovador, el curso se realiza completamente a través de WhatsApp, con microlecciones de entre 5 y 7 minutos que puedes seguir desde cualquier lugar. Imagina aprender sobre ChatGPT, Claude y las últimas herramientas de inteligencia artificial mientras tomas un café o viajas en el metro. ¿Por qué este curso es diferente? Está creado por expertos de empresas como Meta y respaldado por profesionales del IE Business School. Las lecciones son personalizadas según tu experiencia y profesión. Incluyen vídeos tipo TikTok, ejercicios prácticos y feedback en tiempo real. Cuentas con Maya, un asistente virtual que te guía 24/7. Además, recibirás un certificado para compartir en LinkedIn. Los resultados hablan por sí solos. Este método logra entre un 70 y un 90% de retención del conocimiento comparado con el 15% del aprendizaje tradicional. El precio regular es de $150, pero para nuestros espectadores de Negocios TV ofrecemos un 15% de descuento exclusivo. Y empezar es muy sencillo. Escanea el código QR que aparece en pantalla o visita go.fslabs.co/negocios TV. Se te abrirá WhatsApp automáticamente con un mensaje predeterminado. Es importante que no lo modifiques ya que contiene tu código de descuento especial. Envía el mensaje y listo, así podrás acceder inmediatamente a tu primera lección gratuita. Cuando decidas continuar con el curso completo, el descuento del 15% se aplicará automáticamente. WhatsApp te irá guiando en cada paso del proceso. Así de fácil es comenzar tu viaje en el mundo de la inteligencia artificial. No dejes pasar esta oportunidad única para los espectadores de Negocios TV. Escanea el código QR ahora mismo o visita go.fslabs.co/negocios TV.
7 de la tarde, hora central europea. Bienvenidos al cierre de Wall Street. Jornada de auténtica sangría en la renta variable norteamericana. El miedo vuelve a apoderarse de los inversores, si es que alguna vez se fue, porque los aranceles de Donald Trump vienen pisando fuerte y a la bolsa de Nueva York no le están sentando nada bien. Va Wall Street camino de cerrar un mes de marzo que ha sido completamente negativo para todos sus índices de renta variable. Pero bueno, eso llegará el lunes. Lo que estamos viendo hoy, lo están viendo ustedes en pantalla. El color rojo se apodera de Wall Street, completa debacle en la bolsa de Nueva York a esta hora, con caídas además contundentes, sobre todo en el sector de la tecnología. Lo están viendo, Google se deja más de un 4%, Microsoft un 3%, Nvidia a la baja un 1,5%, JP Morgan caídas del 2,6%, Amazon del 4,5%, Netflix del 4,3%, Tesla del 3,7%, y así podría empezar y no terminar de contabilizar las intensísimas caídas que vuelve a sufrir la bolsa de Nueva York. Se han juntado hoy varios factores que han influido, pero lo cierto es que el factor fundamental, el factor protagonista es ese miedo a los aranceles de Donald Trump, unas tarifas en las que sigue insistiendo el presidente norteamericano. Cada vez que tiene una intervención pública, aprovecha para insistir en ello. Él sigue diciendo que los aranceles van a devolver la riqueza perdida a Estados Unidos y que van a conseguir equilibrar la economía norteamericana, pero el mercado de renta variable de momento no lo ve así. Vamos a leer pantallas, vamos a ver índices de renta variable en tiempo real. Vemos que esa sangría está sobre todo protagonizada y focalizada en el sector tecnológico, que ha llegado a perder cerca de un 3%. Ahora mismo reduce un poquito esa corrección, se deja un 2,5% cotizando en los 19.307 puntos. También caídas del 1,8%, 5.886 puntos para el S&P 500 y ojo que Dow Jones ha llegado a perder cerca de 800 puntos en la sesión. Tenemos al índice Dow Jones de Industriales experimentando ahora caídas un poquito inferiores, del entorno de los 600 puntos. Cotiza Dow Jones, pierde 678 puntos concretamente en los 41.620 puntos. ¿Y qué es lo que está subiendo con fuerza? Pues el índice de volatilidad VIX, evidentemente, avanza, ojo, un 16% y se coloca ese índice ya en 21 puntos con 6. También debacle en el Russell 2000, que no lo hemos citado, caídas del 2,3% en los 2.018 puntos para el índice de compañías de pequeña y mediana capitalización. Jornada de sangría en Wall Street. Vamos a hacer seguimiento en tiempo real, minuto a minuto, de lo que pasa en estas últimas 2 horas de cotización, pero vamos a repasar también lo que está pasando en renta fija, en oro, en Bitcoin y demás mercados. Vamos a ver primero ese mercado de renta fija con unas rentabilidades de los bonos que se movían con moderación, con cierta tendencia a la baja en las rentabilidades en la sesión de hoy, y que esa moderación pues ha dado paso a una debacle en esas rentabilidades. Bono americano a 2 años en el 3,9%, con caídas del 1,9%, bono americano a 10 en el 2,3% de caída, situándose en el 4,2% de rentabilidad. También hoy ha sido jornada de corrección en las rentabilidades del resto de renta variable europea, de renta fija, perdón, con un yield británico, por ejemplo, que ha caído un 1,8%, un bono alemán un 1,3% o un bono español a 10 años que ha caído un 0,8%. Vamos a ver la cotización del oro, que esta semana, ojo, se revaloriza un 3% y vuelve a marcar hoy nuevos máximos históricos. Cotiza hasta ahora en los $3.077 la onza, ya roza los 3.100, con subidas hasta ahora, como decimos, del 0,7%. Volvemos a observar que hoy no hay correlación con la plata, que cae un 0,9% y cotiza en los $34. Vamos a ver qué es lo que ha pasado en la sesión en una plantilla que hemos preparado, porque al margen de los aranceles, que evidentemente son el elemento protagonista, hay otros factores que hoy pueden estar también penalizando a la renta variable norteamericana. Hemos conocido dato de confianza del consumidor de la Universidad de Michigan y también hemos tenido el deflactor PCE. El dato de confianza del consumidor de la Universidad de Michigan se ha situado en 57, por debajo de lo que esperaba el consenso y por debajo del mes anterior. Y el dato de PCE pues ha sido un dato agridulce, porque la tasa general se ha situado en el 2,5%, tal y como esperábamos, pero la subyacente se ha situado en el 2,8%, que ojo, son 2 décimas más que el mes anterior, cuando se situó en el 2,6, y 1 décima más de lo que esperaba el consenso. Por lo tanto, la inflación estable, la que no tiene en cuenta los productos volátiles como energía y alimentos, no solamente no baja, sino que está subiendo y está más cerca de 3 que de 2. Y eso puede provocar miedo en Wall Street, porque los inversores pueden esperar un comportamiento más conservador por parte de la Reserva Federal, o más cauteloso. En este contexto, vamos a contarles también la actualidad geopolítica que está marcando el rumbo del comportamiento de Wall Street, al margen de esos aranceles en los que Donald Trump sigue insistiendo. Habla del día 2 de abril como el día de la liberación. El presidente de Estados Unidos también se ha referido hace unos minutos a la situación en Irán. Dice el presidente norteamericano que Irán está en su lista de prioridades, que como todos sabemos envió hace unas semanas una misiva a Irán dando un ultimátum, y asegura el presidente de Estados Unidos, el presidente norteamericano, que Irán debe hablar con su administración o pasarán cosas malas. Insiste en que es su prioridad, pero que hay que llegar a un acuerdo en torno a los elementos nucleares de los que dispone Irán.
A lot of drones. They make very effective drones too. They do very effectively at some things, but Iran is very high on my list of things to watch. And as you probably know, I sent them a letter just recently, and I said, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran. And I don't want that to happen. I don't say this through strength or weakness. My big preference is we work it out with Iran. But if we don't work it out, bad things are going to happen to Iran. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
El presidente de Estados Unidos también ha expresado su esperanza en que las relaciones económicas con Canadá mejoren después de su llamada con el primer ministro Mark Carney, al hablar con confianza sobre el rumbo de las relaciones comerciales. Trump insiste en que cree que las cosas van a funcionar con Canadá, pero insiste en que se impondrán aranceles a Canadá y al resto de países. Dice que lo van a tener que entender, porque se tienen que mantener esos aranceles para que Estados Unidos recupere su economía perdida.
To Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many decades, and that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. Some we probably won't. It won't be so pleasant, but with I think most countries are agreeing with me. They actually, many of them have actually apologized. They said, look, we have taken advantage. And I don't blame them as much as I blame the people that stood, in this case I can say the men, because so far they've been all men, haven't they? But the men that sat right there and behind the Resolute desk, mostly the Resolute desk,
Pendientes de más actualidad, pendientes sobre todo de esa debacle que está sufriendo el mercado. Esas caídas intensas en Wall Street han llegado a ser cercanas al 3% en Nasdaq. Ahora cotiza con una corrección un poquito menor, del 2,5%. Nos vamos en directo a la señal que nos llega a Groenlandia. J.D. Vance, vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, en directo.
That he's proud of you and he thinks about you. And of course, the same is true for everybody that's flanking me up here. We're thrilled to be here because the mission that you guys do is so important for the United States. It's important for our national security. And today, everybody that I met to a person was professional, was kind, was knowledgeable, and was dedicated to our country. You're a great credit to the United States of America, even though you are very, very far from home. I met some Texans and some Floridians today, and I thought to myself, man, you guys have really signed up for tough duty here in Greenland, but it's a beautiful place. It's a striking place, a very harsh place. The Colonel showed me around, but a very beautiful place. Even in right now, I guess we're still, at least here in Greenland, in the heart of what is winter, because winter, I guess, lasts about 9 months here in Greenland. So I want to thank our reporters for following us around today and covering what we're doing. We'll take some questions from the reporters. But before we did that, I wanted to give some of my special guests an opportunity to say a few words. So we, of course, are thrilled to be joined by Juliet, our national security advisor's wife, and by my wife, our second lady, Usha. And flanking me here on my left is Chris Wright, our Secretary of Energy, Mike Waltz, our National Security Advisor, and my dear friend, Senator Mike Lee from the great state of Utah, who I joked earlier, I told Mike I'd give him a ride to Utah, and we ended up in Greenland. But I want to, because each of them care about this territory and care about the mission of the American military here in Greenland, for various reasons, touching each of the areas that they focus on, I thought it would be worth hearing from each of them for a little while. So, Chris, if you would say a few words about the importance of energy. Thanks, Chris. Here we are.
I will. Let me echo the Vice President's comments to thank you for your service to our country, wherever it is, whatever it takes. And I think we see right here in this beautiful air base in the high Arctic what energy can do. We can make a tough high Arctic environment a beautiful place to live, a comfortable place to live, all sorts of scientific instrumentation, military mission to monitor what's going on in the world. None of this was possible not long ago. President Trump was elected to re-energize America, to take the beauty that you've seen up here and make that a thing of pride and ambition again. Not shaming of energy, not trying to stop its growth and its prosperity, but to re-energize it. So energy makes the world a beautiful place to live. It makes us comfortable and have long, opportunity-rich lives. I'm thrilled and proud to be part of this administration with President Trump and Vice President Vance. Thank you all for your service. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Mike?
I guess when we flew in, it did look a little bit like Utah in the wintertime. Only there are substantial portions of this land that are always covered in ice, and it doesn't change. I really enjoyed talking to a number of you a little while ago as you were telling me that when you're deployed here for a year without your family, without your spouse, without your children. That is emblematic of so many of the sacrifices that so many of our armed services personnel make. And my conversations with our airmen and guardians this afternoon reminded me of the fact that the American people are indeed in good hands. They're in your hands. What you do here makes us safer. And when we're going about our business, our day-to-day lives at home, we don't have to worry about the things that you worry about because you're doing it for us. Thank you so much for that. And I look forward to learning more about what you do here and about the future of the United States and its interaction with this amazing land in this part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And I just wanted to take a minute and thank you all to the airmen and women, to the guardians who are keeping us safe day in and day out. You are continuing a tradition of the U.S. military's presence in Greenland since World War II, a 1951 defense treaty. And President Trump is absolutely serious with the Vice President and with his team about the Arctic and the security that the Arctic brings and that you bring to the Western Hemisphere. This is about shipping lanes. This is about energy. This is about fisheries. And of course, it's about your mission, which is keeping us safe and monitoring space, monitoring our adversaries, and making sure the American people can sleep safely in their homes day in and day out. So thank you for roughing it. Thank you for being without your families. I bet every one of you are going to pick somewhere in, I don't know, Florida or the Bahamas or something for your next duty station, I would think. But this is also, I mean, what an incredible adventure. I have yet to meet a veteran. My wife is a veteran. I am as well. And of course, the Vice President. I have yet to meet a veteran that says, wow, I regret my time in service. Instead, they cherish it the rest of their lives. So appreciate this moment and this adventure that it is. And the American people, thank you. The President Trump thanks you. And I know the Vice President and the Second Lady thanks you as well. And it's just really an honor to be with you today. Thanks so much, VP.
So thank you, Mike. And let me say just a couple of other things, and then we'll take some questions from the reporters. So number one, I think a lot of Americans wonder, why does Greenland matter so much? Why does the mission of this base matter so much to the American people? And I learned a lot about that today myself. Of course, you can read about it in a book, but I saw it up close and personal. And if, God forbid, to my fellow Americans, if a missile was fired from an enemy country or an enemy submarine into the United States, it is the people here before us who would give notice to our brave men and women further south in the United States to let people know what was coming and, God willing, to try to shoot it down and prepare for it. That's one of the things that we do at installations like this. We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways and Arctic naval routes, and indeed in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure that America is leading in the Arctic, because we know that if America doesn't, other nations will fill the gap where we fall behind. So what you guys do is so critically important. I think a lot of Americans, certainly I, didn't realize it fully until President Trump started talking about the importance of our Arctic mission, about building upon it and ensuring that America can lead in the Arctic for the next generation. And now I want to talk about, of course, the interaction and what Denmark, I think, has done, and sometimes in partnership with us. But let's be honest, what Denmark over the last 20 years has failed to do in some cases, because we know that unfortunately this place, this base, the surrounding area is less secure than it was 30, 40 years ago, because some of our allies haven't kept up. As China and Russia have taken greater and greater interest in Greenland, in this base, in the activities of the brave Americans right here, we know that too often our allies in Europe have not kept pace. They haven't kept pace with military spending, and Denmark has not kept pace in devoting the resources necessary to keep this base, to keep our troops, and in my view, to keep the people of Greenland safe from a lot of very aggressive incursions from Russia, from China, and from other nations. Now, President Trump, as he says all the time, and as a lot of people recognize, is a president of peace. We want to have good relationships with everybody. That includes, even to the extent possible, the Chinese and the Russians. But part of having good relations is showing your strength when you have to. And unfortunately, the story of Greenland over the past 20 years when it comes to security is that we've underinvested in the infrastructure, we've underinvested in the security architecture, and we've underinvested in the brave men and women who are doing a very hard job, as Mike said, to keep all of us safe. That has to change. Now, when I pointed out a couple of weeks ago that in some ways, with all due respect to our Danish allies, they had not kept pace, there was a lot of criticism from Denmark, a lot of attacks at the Trump administration, at the president, at me, at others in our administration for saying the obvious, which is that Denmark hasn't done a good job at keeping Greenland safe. And one of the things I heard was, well, what about the many Danes who lost their lives in the war on terror fighting alongside the United States? Well, look, we obviously honor the sacrifice of our Danish friends in the war on terror 20 years ago, just as, for example, the French honor the sacrifice of Americans in Normandy 80 years ago. But recognizing that there are important security partnerships in the past does not mean that we can't have disagreements with allies in the present about how to preserve our shared security for the future. And that's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. It's consistent with the first Trump administration, where you saw significant investments in Arctic security, and it will continue over the next 4 years under President Trump's leadership. And let me finally, before I kick it over to the media, make one comment about the people of Greenland. The colonel here, the base commander, who came here first as a second lieutenant, and I guess, Colonel, this is your second duty station here, and we're proud of you and proud of all of you guys who are serving and helping keep us safe. I heard a lot about the respect that our American troops show for the local Greenlandic population, the way that we make and create shelter for hunters and dog sledders, the way that we found ways to turn over traditional tribal land to some of the local populations in order to ensure that they're able to live in accordance with their values. We respect, as the president said in his State of the Union address, we respect the self-determination of Greenlanders, excuse me. We believe in the self-determination of the population of the people of Greenland. And our argument is very simple. It is not with the people of Greenland, who I think are incredible and have an incredible opportunity here. Our argument really is with the leadership of Denmark, which is underinvested in Greenland and underinvested in its security architecture. That simply must change. It is the policy of the United States that will change. And I'm proud to be able to stand here with so many brave Americans to better understand the security mission and better understand what you guys do each and every day. For that, I'm grateful for your service. I'm even more grateful. I love you guys. I'm proud of you guys. And President Trump stands behind you and will for the remainder of his administration. Thank you all. God bless you. All right, now we'll take a few questions. Both of you guys have your hands up. Whoever can go first. Red scarf, go first.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Do you have any plans, are there plans to expand the U.S.'s military presence in Greenland beyond this base?
Well, are there immediate plans to expand our military presence? No, but are there general objectives that we want to accomplish that will certainly require us investing more resources, investing in additional military, icebreakers, investing in additional naval ships that will have a greater presence in Greenland? Absolutely. And we know that's necessary because we know, as Mike talked about, and certainly I talked about, there has been an expansion of the security footprint and the security interest of Russia and China. They're doing what they believe is in their interest. The United States must do what I know is in our interest, which is to make sure that Greenland is safe. If Greenland doesn't have self-determination, if the people of Greenland have their future controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, it's not going to make their lives better off. And most importantly, it's going to make American and world national security, world security, much, much weaker. We in some ways need to wake up. We need to wake up from a failed 40-year consensus that said that we could ignore the encroachment of powerful countries as they expand their ambitions. We can't just bury our head in the sand, or in Greenland, bury our head in the snow and pretend that the Chinese are not interested in this very large landmass. We know that they are. They've taken steps to put Greenland in ridiculous debt traps to invest and exploit the resources here. And we know that they're sending a lot of military resources here. Yes, over the medium term, the United States will meet that challenge. We will put our own resources here. We already have a lot of great resources here, but we know we're going to have to do more to counter some of the nations that we know that we're competitive with. Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. And the president said today that we have to have Greenland. By being here today, are you also conveying that message that the U.S. is very serious in its desire to acquire Greenland?
Well, the president said we have to have Greenland, and I think that we do have to be more serious about the security of Greenland. We can't just ignore this place. We can't just ignore the president's desires, but most importantly, we can't ignore what I said earlier, which is the Russian and Chinese encroachment in Greenland. We have to do more. Now, what the president said in his State of the Union address, and he was very clear about this, is we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland. But my argument again to them is I think that you'd be a lot better coming under the United States security umbrella than you have been under Denmark's security umbrella. Because what Denmark's security umbrella has meant is effectively they've passed it all off to brave Americans and hoped that we would pick up the tab. We're simply saying to the people of Greenland, when the president says we've got to have Greenland, he's saying this island is not safe. A lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people are making a play. We know that America cares about the security of this island for the sake of the people of Greenland, but also for the sake of the national security interests of the United States of America. So our message is very simple. Yes, the people of Greenland are going to have self-determination. We hope that they choose to partner with the United States because we're the only nation on earth that will respect their sovereignty and respect their security, because their security is very much our security, as these brave Americans show.
John Parkinson with ABC News. Thanks for bringing us along on this historic trip. I wanted to ask you about last week's news with the Atlantic. We've had a couple questions on Greenland. I feel like you've answered that. But I did want to ask, did you express your concerns to the president that you were opposed to the Houthi strike? And also, what did you mean when you asked, or when you said in that thread that the president wasn't aware that his directions for Yemen were inconsistent with his message on Europe?
Well, I didn't quite say that. I think that's a slight misunderstanding of what I said. But we've talked, of course, in the American media about Signalgate, as I called it, for the past week. And here's what I told the president and the entire national security team is that, yes, it is in the interest of the United States of America to preserve navigation. Yes, it is in the interest of the United States to kill terrorists who are preventing navigation in the Red Sea, but we got to make sure that we do it right. We have to be careful. We have to make sure the timing is right. And of course, what that leak revealed, I think, is a private communication between the president's senior advisors about how best to prepare the American people for what we all thought we had to do, about the right timing of when we should do something, and of course, surfacing the strategic questions that we needed to decide and brief the president on so that he could ultimately make the decision about what we would do. What I saw in that Signal chat, and of course what I've seen in the president's senior national security team, is that sometimes we all agree and sometimes we all disagree, but it's important that we all have an honest conversation amongst ourselves and with the president of the United States about what we think is the best interest of the national security of the United States of America. I support the president's decision to strike the Houthis. I always supported the president's decision to strike the Houthis, and I support the national security team having the argument about how best to serve the American people. Good.
In your security briefing today, did you see specific threats coming from China and Russia, things that you did not know about before? Are we talking battleships, icebreakers, any type of military equipment, or is it economic?
Well, I don't want to get too specific, but yes, we know that the Chinese are very, very interested in this island. We've seen some of the economic pressures that they've tried to place on Greenland. We know that they're increasingly engaging in military training and military interest. Certainly, they've started to describe themselves as a near Arctic power. And I think part of that is justifying taking a further interest in Greenland and some of the surrounding territories. So we've seen very strong evidence that both the Chinese and the Russians are interested in Greenland. And why wouldn't they be interested in Greenland? It's a beautiful place. It has incredible people. It has its geographic placement makes it very important for the national security of the United States, but for world security. What we have to recognize is that if the Chinese and the Russians are going to pursue their national interest, we need a president who's going to pursue the American national interest, and that means ensuring that Greenland is safe.
When can we expect an update on the internal investigation into that Signal chat leak? Has that investigation concluded, and what are the findings? I think we'll get an update soon. Look, we take it very seriously. We all accept that a journalist should not have been invited into the chat, and members of the administration, including my dear friend Mike, have taken responsibility for it. But I find the American media's obsession with this issue very, very interesting, because I happen to remember about 4 years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really, really interested in forcing the president of the United States to fire someone because of a Signal chat, That is not
honest behavior from the American media. And if you think you're going to force the president of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. President Trump has said it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I'm the vice president saying it here on Friday. We are standing behind our entire national security team. Yeah, go ahead.
The tariffs. There's been some retaliation, some signals at least in the media that Canada is going to respond. Some of these others are going to respond to the president's tariffs. What's your message for Americans that are going to see costs increase on auto manufacturing, new cars, that kind of thing? Is it Buy America, or what's the message going forward there?
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, for the Canadians, and we have many dear friends in Canada, and of course we love the Canadian people, but the Canadian leadership threatening retaliatory tariffs against the United States, as President Trump often says, they just don't have the cards. There is no way that Canada can win a trade war with the United States. What President Trump has said is that he wants to level the playing field. For decades, Canadian leadership has forced American farmers and American manufacturers to play by an unfair set of rules. All President Trump has said is that we're done playing by an unfair set of rules. If you're going to do something to our industries, then we're going to do something back to your industries. That's how you protect American manufacturing, and that's how you protect American jobs. Now, what I'd say to the American people is look, the president ran on this, and he said very clearly that we're done being the piggy bank of the entire world. For 40 years, in the same way that our European friends, I think, have neglected international security, for 40 years, a lot of our friends all over the world have used America as a piggy bank. They have used us to absorb all of their excess economic production. What does that mean for Americans? For Americans, that's meant manufacturing jobs declining. That's meant middle-class wages going down. That's meant whole towns that have been hollowed out by empty factories. And that means in America that is less safe because our manufacturing isn't as powerful now as it was 30 years ago. I've got all these brave Americans in front of me and a few behind me too. We want to send, if God forbid we have to send Americans to war, we want them to have weapons, the best weapons in the world that are manufactured in America and not in China. The way you do that is to rebuild the American manufacturing sector. The days of America being the piggy bank of the world, the days of closed factories, the days of people not being able to get a middle-class job in this country, they're over. And yes, that means we're going to have to fight back even against some of our friends and their unfair economic practices. But the long-term consequence of this is going to be higher wages, more manufacturing, and more economic security for the American people. We'll take a couple more questions.
Russia, has the U.S. agreed to those conditions that the Kremlin said were needed for that truce in the Black Sea? It included lifting sanctions imposed on Russian banks. Trump said this week that you were still looking at it.
Well, there are a couple of different statements that are floating around out there, and some of them I think are mistranslations, and some of them are not totally clear what is even being asked for. But the president has said, and he's right, that I think we feel very good about where things are. We trust but verify. We make sure that what we're seeing from one party is met by the other party and vice versa. But I think that we've made an incredible amount of progress. We have to remember that this war started under Joe Biden's administration. It has led to an unbelievable amount of death and destruction. And for the first time in almost 4 years, thanks to President Trump's leadership, we have an opportunity to really achieve a peaceful settlement. The president's going to fight every single day to make sure that happens. And of course, we'll keep you guys updated as we continue to make progress. I do think if you look at what we've talked about, we've obviously got this energy infrastructure ceasefire. We've got a Black Sea commercial ceasefire that I think is almost done. And once we get there, we'll work on the next stage of the ceasefire. Yeah.
President has previously not ruled out military force when he's talking about taking over Greenland. But your rhetoric today is more about encouraging the Greenlandic people to vote for independence. Do you think the rhetoric has changed about that, or what's your message there?
No, I don't think it's changed at all. Look, the president said clearly he doesn't think that military force is going to be necessary, but he absolutely believes that Greenland is an important part of the security, not just of the United States, but of the world, and of course, the people of Greenland too. It's very simple. I think the president's been very consistent here from his State of the Union, from his inaugural address, and every public statement that he's made. This territory, Greenland, really matters for the security of the United States. It's extremely vulnerable right now. And if the people of Greenland were willing to partner with the United States, and I think that they ultimately will partner with the United States, we could make them much more secure. We could do a lot more protection, and I think they'd fare a lot better economically as well. This has to happen. And the reason it has to happen, I hate to say it, simple. For all of our friends in the American media who attack the administration for pointing out the obvious, what is the alternative? To give up the North Atlantic, to give up the Arctic to China, to Russia, and to other regimes that don't have the best interest of the American people at heart? We have no other option. We need to take a significant position in Greenland to keep the people here safe, but to keep our own country safe too. We'll do one or two more. Yeah.
Trump said this week the U.S. would go as far as we have to go to acquire Greenland. In that same vein, on that question, are there plans that have been drafted to use military force to take over Greenland?
Well, what the president has said, is that we need to have more of a position in Greenland. We need it, again, for the safety of the American people. And what we think is going to happen is that the Greenlanders are going to choose through self-determination to become independent of Denmark. And then we're going to have conversations with the people of Greenland from there. So I think that talking about anything too far in the future is way too premature. We do not think that military force is ever going to be necessary. We think this makes sense. And because we think the people of Greenland are rational and good, we think we're going to be able to cut a deal, Donald Trump style, to ensure the security of this territory, but also the United States of America. I'll do one more question.
You spoke about economic interests, how the U.S. could develop Greenland more economically. Could you speak a little bit more about that? I know Secretary Wright is here. Have you guys spoken about energy? Senator Lee is here as well. Just wondering what those discussions have been like.
My point actually is that other countries have explicitly gone after Greenland, and I think with a mind towards economic exploitation. Sometimes asking Greenland to get itself into terrible economic debt traps that would make the people of Greenland not self-determined and sovereign, but to mortgage their future to hostile foreign countries that don't have their best interests at heart. That is not what the United States of America wants to do. What we want to do is to protect the security of this territory because it matters for us and it matters for the people who live here. All right, guys, thank you all. And let me just say one more final word to the Guardians, the Airmen, the other service members gathered here. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, it is incredible to be a vice president who has served just as our NSA, Mike Waltz, has served, to know the sacrifice that comes along with it, and to see that there are still incredible young Americans willing to put on the uniform and serve this country. You make America a better place, and you make an honor to serve as your vice president. God bless you guys. Thanks for having me.
Directo, titulares importantes ha dado el vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance. Dice que si Groenlandia se asociara con Estados Unidos, tendría más capacidad de seguridad y más capacidad económica. También ha dicho que tanto China como Rusia están interesadas en Groenlandia. Insiste en que Groenlandia tiene que estar de cierta forma al servicio de Estados Unidos para garantizar su seguridad, y dice que Dinamarca no lo ha hecho bien con este territorio. Palabras contundentes, importantes del vicepresidente J.D. Vance en este momento, precisamente hablando desde Groenlandia. Continuamos, esas son las últimas horas. Vamos a analizar en este momento, en esta situación, la relación entre Estados Unidos y China. Nos acompaña a esta hora en Negocios Televisión, el cierre de Wall Street, Sara Núñez de Prado, profesora titular de Historia del Mundo Actual en la Universidad Rey Juan Carlos. Sara, bienvenida.
Gracias.
Quiero hablar de cómo está gestionando la guerra comercial actual que hay en el mundo y que está protagonizando Donald Trump. Bueno, pues cómo la está gestionando el propio Trump y la economía estadounidense, y cómo la está gestionando China, porque Donald Trump amenaza con aranceles mientras Xi Jinping corteja a las empresas multinacionales para que se vayan a China.
Sí, pero bueno, esto es una práctica habitual china, el Estado también les da ayudas a las empresas chinas para que compren empresas estadounidenses y sobre todo que les compren tecnología, o presiona a las empresas estadounidenses en territorio chino para que cedan información, tecnología. Es decir, no es nada que sea nuevo, sino que ya lleva tiempo produciéndose.
Vale, dime, continúa.
Voy a decir además, uno de los problemas por los que Trump está defendiendo su proteccionismo y sus aranceles, etcétera, es, entre otros, por la deslocalización, precisamente por las empresas que se han ido de Estados Unidos pues, a Asia y a China específicamente también.
Te quiero preguntar acerca de cómo crees que va a evolucionar en este contexto, teniendo en cuenta lo que está haciendo China, cómo va a evolucionar la relación entre China y Estados Unidos.
Pues, a ver, nadie tiene una bola de cristal y es difícil predecir, pero en este momento China está, digamos, llamando un poco a la negociación, mientras que Trump está haciendo lo contrario. Trump tiene muy claro con su América primero, hacer América grande otra vez, que la política arancelaria es lo que tiene que hacer. En líneas generales, cuando tú tienes un enemigo económico, lo que haces es que te asocias con tus socios precisamente para conseguir políticas comunes. En este caso, Trump está haciendo justo lo contrario, es decir, se está peleando con todo el mundo, se va de tratados internacionales, no se fía de la OTAN, se pelea con los socios habituales. Entonces, la situación es compleja, pero vamos, tampoco podemos pensar que China aquí es el pobre inocente que está sufriendo. También la política china es bastante agresiva en relación a la economía de Estados Unidos, con lo cual, si ya en el anterior mandato de Trump hubo, a partir del 18, fundamentalmente guerra comercial, pues puede haberla ahora también.
¿Y quién puede ganar? Teniendo en cuenta cómo están posicionándose un país y el otro, ¿quién tiene más posibilidades de ganar esa guerra comercial?
Pues en principio casi sería mejor preguntar quién va a perder, y aquí vamos a perder todos. El primer mandato de Trump, la guerra comercial, no le fue tan mal tampoco, no hay que olvidarlo. Lo que pasa que es que, a ver, lo que está en juego no es exclusivamente la economía, lo que está en juego son dos maneras de ver el orden internacional, de ver la ideología, de ver la vida. Entonces, todo esto está dentro del contexto de nuevo orden en el que nos estamos moviendo ahora. Es difícil saber quién puede ganar, pero la lucha está básicamente en la tecnología. Tradicionalmente Estados Unidos siempre ha sido el número uno en tecnología. China le está ganando la batalla, eso está claro, no lo puede permitir, y la comunicación, la información, pues es el otro gran elemento. ¿Quién puede ganar? Pues a lo mejor quien tenga mejor tecnología.
Tenga mejor tecnología. Espérate un momento, que voy a contar dos noticias de última hora y en cuanto las cuente continuamos con esta conversación. Pues tienen que ver precisamente con esos mensajes que ha lanzado el vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance, desde Groenlandia. Ha dicho J.D. Vance que para garantizar la seguridad de Estados Unidos, Groenlandia tiene que avisar primero. Dice que en cualquier caso, en un primer momento, no se van a desplegar tropas en Groenlandia, pero no descarta que se ayude por parte de Estados Unidos al rearme de Groenlandia. Y también lo que ha dicho J.D. Vance, y esta es la noticia de última hora, es que asegura que tanto China como Rusia están interesados en Groenlandia, están interesadas en el Ártico, pero asegura que a Groenlandia le iría mejor asociándose con Estados Unidos.
I don't want to get too specific, but yes, we know that the Chinese are very, very interested in this island. We've seen some of the economic pressures that they've tried to place on Greenland. We know that they're increasingly engaging in military training and military interest. Certainly, they've started to describe themselves as a near Arctic power. And I think part of that is justifying taking a further interest in Greenland and some of the surrounding territories. So we've seen very strong evidence that both the Chinese and the Russians are interested in Greenland. And why wouldn't they be interested in Greenland? It's a beautiful place. It has incredible people. It has its geographic placement makes it very important for the national security of the United States, but for world security. What we have to recognize is that if the Chinese and the Russians are going to pursue their national interest, we need a president who's going to pursue the American national interest, and that means ensuring that
Lo que ha especificado el vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance, es que Groenlandia estaría, asegura, mucho más segura bajo el paraguas de seguridad de Estados Unidos. Insiste, eso sí, en que no hay planes para enviar tropas a Groenlandia y dice también J.D. Vance que cree que los groenlandeses elegirían independizarse de Dinamarca y luego tendrán conversaciones. Ha dicho J.D. Vance que Dinamarca ha tratado mal o no ha cuidado lo suficiente a Groenlandia.
We have to have Greenland, and I think that we do have to be more serious about the security of Greenland. We can't just ignore this place. We can't just ignore the president's desires, but most importantly, we can't ignore what I said earlier, which is the Russian and Chinese encroachment in Greenland. We have to do more. Now, what the president said in his State of the Union address, and he was very clear about this, is we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland, but my argument again to them is I think that you'd be a lot better coming under the United States security umbrella than you have been under Denmark's security umbrella. Because what Denmark's security umbrella has meant is effectively they've passed it all off to brave Americans and hoped that we would pick up the tab. We're simply saying to the people of Greenland, when the president says we've got to have Greenland, he's saying this island is not safe. A lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people are making a play. We know that America cares about the security of this island for the sake of the people of Greenland, but also for the sake of the national security interests of the United States of America. So our message is very simple. Yes, the people of Greenland are going to have self-determination. We hope that they choose to partner with the United States because we're the only nation on earth that will respect their sovereignty and respect their security, because their security is very much our security as these brave Americans.
El otro gran titular que ha dado el vicepresidente de Estados Unidos, J.D. Vance, se lo contábamos antes, dice que de momento no van a enviar tropas a Groenlandia, pero no descarta un cierto rearme del territorio en el futuro. Asegura que Dinamarca ha desprotegido esta zona.
Are there immediate plans to expand our military presence? No, but are there general objectives that we want to accomplish that will certainly require us investing more resources, investing in additional military, icebreakers, investing in additional naval ships that will have a greater presence in Greenland? Absolutely. And we know that's necessary because we know, as Mike talked about, and certainly I talked about, there has been an expansion of the security footprint and the security interest of Russia and China. They're doing what they believe is in their interest. The United States must do what I know is in our interest, which is to make sure that Greenland is safe. If Greenland doesn't have self-determination, if the people of Greenland have their future controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, it's not going to make their lives better off. And most importantly, it's going to make American and world national security, world security, much.
Pues continuamos hablando de esa relación entre Estados Unidos y China y comentábamos que en este momento, en esta ocasión, parece que lo que más va a poner la balanza en un sitio o en otro es la tecnología. Y en esa carrera por la tecnología también tenemos a un país y a otro dando pasos adelante. Ahora esa batalla parece que gira en torno a la inteligencia artificial y tenemos, entiendo que dos grandes sectores en los que China está plantándole cara a Estados Unidos. Tema de inteligencia artificial, tema de vehículos eléctricos.
Sí, efectivamente. Son los dos grandes temas en estos momentos, las estrellas. Y la verdad es que parece que China en estos momentos le está ganando la batalla a Estados Unidos. Por lo menos esa es la apariencia.
¿Crees que es más inteligente en este momento aliarse, intentar atraer a esas compañías tecnológicas, aliarse con ellas, que no enfrentarse como está haciendo Donald Trump? Aunque Donald Trump no está enfrentándose a las compañías, está enfrentando...
A hand is up. Two hands are, oh my gosh. You guys, don't make me cry. Don't make me cry. Two hands are up. Yeah, so I got in, it was like 4 a.m. Welcome aboard, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Certainly, we are all interested in the Vice President, his remarks. Today's going to be slightly different. It already is a little bit. That I was on the Secretary's travel, of course. Many of you were as well. Raise your hands if you were on that lovely travel experience through the forests of the world. One. Yeah, all right. Got home about 4 a.m. And so don't take advantage of me. I've had a few hours sleep. But yes, so it's been an unusual day. And I wanted to do this because, gosh, nothing's happened. So I thought we'd just have simple chats today. But it's different in that there are several large issues, which I believe all of you would be interested in, mostly, that are significant. And so we're going to move in that regard. And I've got a bit of an announcement for you as well. But several things, of course, are on our plate. So it is an experiment. Thank you for working with me. And I appreciate you being here, obviously, to say the least. All right, so we did just return from a highly successful trip in the Caribbean. This was Secretary Rubio's second trip in our hemisphere. From day one of this administration, American leadership has been back in our region. We are standing with our partners to ensure mutual prosperity, security, and progress. In addition, the United States sends our deepest condolences to all affected in Burma and Thailand by the earthquake that struck this morning. USAID has maintained a team of disaster experts with the capacity to respond if disaster strikes. These expert teams provide immediate assistance, including food and safe drinking water needed to save lives in the aftermath of a disaster. The United States is evaluating the need for assistance based on requests and dynamic reporting. We are also united in support for the people of the Republic of Korea as they face devastating wildfires that have caused loss of life and destruction. We have not forgotten the Republic of Korea's unwavering support during the wildfires in Los Angeles and Hawaii. Just as they stood with us, we stand with them. As the Office of the Secretary also announced today, the Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, have notified Congress on their intent to undertake a reorganization that would involve realigning certain USAID functions to the department by July 1st, 2025, and discontinuing the remaining USAID functions that do not align with administration priorities, I should say. In the words of Secretary Rubio in his statement, foreign assistance done right can advance our national interests, protect our borders, and strengthen our partnerships with key allies. Unfortunately, USAID strayed from its original mission long ago. As a result, the gains were too few and the costs were too high. Thanks to President Trump, this misguided and fiscally irresponsible era is now over. We are reorienting, I should say, our foreign assistance programs to align directly with what is best for the United States and our citizens. We are continuing essential life-saving programs and making strategic investments that strengthen our partners and our own country. This is yet another promise made and delivered to the American people. Finally, the United States announced important steps to disrupt the complex schemes Hezbollah uses to conceal its illicit behavior and acquire revenue to fund its malign activities. Today, we sanctioned 5 individuals and 3 entities for ties to the U.S. designated Hezbollah. The United States is taking a decisive action against anyone involved in facilitating Iran's oil sales at any stage of the supply chain. Today's designation supports the president's policy of maximum pressure on Iran and its terrorist proxies. And now, I'm open for questions. Now there are all the hands. Dare I say, Matt Lee, he doesn't even, he's kind of got a pen, he's kind of raised hand. But yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. And I got you. I don't know how you got back at 4 o'clock. I got back at 3:30.
Well, there you go. We will not discuss transportation and domiciles, but go ahead, sir.
I guess the traffic was worse for you than it was for me. Anyway, I have 2. They'll be both very brief. One, I think you can answer quite quickly because the secretary addressed it on the plane last night on the way from Suriname to Florida, and that is about the project on the Ukrainian children taken to Russia. What exactly has been restored, even if just temporarily? Can you give us a
Sure.
dollar amount? And then I just got one more also.
Yes, and I'll repeat what the president said. There should be a transcript up of with these gaggles that happened in the back of the plane with our bullpen. And he was asked about, there was a very misleading tweet, I think, from a reporter saying that funding had been reversed and restored. The secretary noted, no, it hasn't been. But I can tell you exactly what has occurred, and something, in fact, has. So first of all, a couple of things here. And we've already talked about, of course, the data. That was a main concern. We know that the data was protected and available. But for those who are thinking that there was a reversal of the decision to terminate support for the conflict observatory, funding is being provided for a short period while the conflict observatory implementers ensure the proper transfer of the critical data on the Ukrainian children to the appropriate authorities. It is part of the standard closeout procedures for terminated programs. So this is not a reversal of funding. It's not a restoration. It is part of the closeout dynamic that we've realized in the process of closing it out about what needs to happen to finish that process. Also, as we learned about more specific requirements of the closeout, we provided then updated guidance to the implementer. So this is what has occurred. As part of the foreign assistance review directed by the Secretary, consistent with the Executive Order 14169, the award supporting the Ukraine Conflict Observatory was paused effective January 25th. Following a review, the U.S. Department of State terminated the award on February 26th. So when we think about the nature of, a very good example of what was fake news based essentially on something partially accurate, but this is the fact of the matter. There is no reversal of funding. It has not been renewed. This is a closeout procedure that required funding to move to make sure the data that was retained that exists is moved to the proper authorities.
So how much is it, you know? For how
No,
long?
I can't
Is
speak
there
to
a-
I
is
can't
there a
speak to the
time
amount of
limit?
money. It's going to be an amount of
then-
money that facilitates the goal of that closeout.
Okay,
Matt,
and then,
now.
and then well, hold on, wait.
I beg
said
your
you-
pardon. Matt, I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just trying to get some more fidelity on the number of foreign students' visas that have been revoked. There's been some back and forth, and it's a little nebulous.
Sure.
If you have not the exact figure, I'm sure, because it's a fluid situation, but
It's one of my new favorite words, because that is somewhat correct. We know that, of course, there's some things I've said, I think, regularly on the issue of visas, is that we don't speak about specifics, right? We tend to also not provide statistics, and I think that's also important. So I'm not going to talk to you about numbers, because also it does continue to change. As we talk about numbers and everything else, we're looking at a framework where it gets us closer to the specifics for individuals, which we don't want to do. Of course, it's a big story. It's something also that's important when it comes to the larger story of the revocation of visas and why that's happening. But the secretary also addressed this a couple of times on the trip. He was asked about certain numbers of visas that were revoked. He said he didn't know, but that we'll revoke the visas of whoever it is that fits within the category of what it is we're deciding is going to get your visa revoked, which is illegal activity, essentially. I do know that from our own conversations here, that, here we go. The department, I can say this specifically, revokes visas every day in order to secure America's borders and keep our communities safe, and will continue to do so. Because the process is ongoing, the number of revocations, as I've noted, is dynamic, and the department generally does not provide statistics on visa revocations, and generally we were not going to add anything at this time, but clearly this is a process that we're committed to and is part of making America safe again. It's within our right, it's within the right of every sovereign nation to make a determination who will stay in this country, who'll be allowed in this country. And the secretary, of course, has been very clear on this. What we can also say is that we have zero tolerance for non-citizens who violate U.S. laws. Those who break the law, including students, may face visa refusal, visa revocation, and/or deportation. Also, all visa applicants, no matter the visa type and where they are located, are continuously vetted. So we are looking always at your status in this process. We also are looking at the security vetting. It runs from the time of each application through adjudication of the visa and afterwards during the validity period of every visa issued to ensure that the individual remains eligible to travel to and be in the United States. The Department of State will work closely, continues to work closely with the Department of Homeland Security, which enters into this process to administer and enforce U.S. visas and immigration laws. A lot of this may have been unknown to people who have visas because we haven't had to discuss it before, but I think that should answer your question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I want to follow up on the same topic. I want to go back to the detention of Turkish students.
All right, so what we're going to do is I do want to stay within a certain block so that we don't go back and forth because there's, again, a number of larger issues, and that includes this issue, the U.S. aid issue, the visa issues, the announcements made today. We have sanctions on Hezbollah, which are important to discuss. So, Andrea,
Are you gonna come
yes,
back to
ma'am.
me?
We'll come back to you.
Okay,
We'll come back to you.
I wanted
Absolutely.
to ask you about U.S. aid.
Yes,
for
ma'am.
Disaster relief and about the children.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for the disaster relief, can you tell us how, or when the disaster relief teams might be mobilized and ready, how soon that might take place? Have requests already come in, to your knowledge? And has the reorganization of U.S. aid affected our ability in these instances to assemble a team and mobilize them quickly?
Well, from conversations through the last, since early this morning, what I can tell you is that we wait for formal requests. So that has not, at least maybe in the last 5 minutes, but coming up here to the podium, we are waiting any formal requests. We are ready. Obviously, we are watching what is transpiring. It is, for all of us who watched September 11th unfold, there's video, I'm sure you've seen it, of a major skyscraper just, it gives all of us the chills. So we've obviously telegraphing that from this podium, and we are ready. I can tell you that, again, through, as I've said before, regarding the nature of the reform and the reviews that have gone on, that we are ready to move now. So there has been no impact on our ability to perform those duties, those requests for aid, if and when they come in.
And to just follow up,
Yes, ma'am.
on the children and the broader question about war crimes and investigations, which had been undertaken with coordination with the State Department, understanding that the data have been preserved.
Correct.
But does that mean, can we infer from that investigations will not be conducted by this government of war crimes going forward, in either the crime of kidnapping or the war crimes that were undertaken, Busha, Mariupol, all these other places?
I've cautioned always for us to not place a whole host of issues attached to something starting or stopping. And that, our work and our commitment to the world is on display every day through certainly Secretary Rubio's commitment, the nature of who he meets with, what he's done when it comes to summits, negotiations, bargaining, the issue of working for ceasefires. It has been a hallmark and remains a hallmark and will be, I have to say, a hallmark of this administration and of Secretary Rubio's tenure here. So it would be wrong to say that, in fact, that signals some kind of end to our work on these issues. In fact, manifesting through the conversation with President Trump and President Putin, it was a central part of that conversation that was discussed between those two men. And I think that shows you where it's placed now and where it will continue to be placed. Well, here's what I do know, which may speak to that a bit, is that the data is not being transferred to a storage facility. It's being transferred to the appropriate authorities. And I think that can tell us that the nature of the trajectory of this data, but also I can't speak to what then moves at that point once it's been transferred? I have a tiny feeling
No, I'm
that with
asking
all of
about-
your investigations and questions, that we will continue to get the details of what happens next.
I'm talking about the crimes that are now underway today, tomorrow, next month. Is it anyone in this government investigating, anyone that to your knowledge at the State Department or connected to it, sorry, investigating crimes current and future since the date of the incident?
Well, first, I'm not going to discuss the details of what the State Department is doing when it comes to its investigations, when it comes to contemplations or negotiations or diplomatic decision-making, whether on any level with any situation, any case that's involved. But what I can point to, I think it's safe to point to, is this nation's history of being involved in making sure that the right thing gets done. There are a number of other entities of which, of course, we are involved, including the United Nations, and of course, other Europe, or the nations of the civilized world. So I would, same with whether it's aid, this argument that we are stopping our aid and we're out of the of caring about providing foreign aid. Of course, that's not true. And because one grant dynamic has stopped in this country at one university, that is not the determiner of the nature of the work of the State Department of the United States. That's unfair, frankly, and moves people into this idea that everything is contained in one moment when there are thousands of moments and work going on around the world, but certainly including the nature of what the State Department's doing under the direction of Marco Rubio, when a commitment of the State Department to solve these problems, to stop carnage, to find justice. We want to be safe, secure, and prosperous for ourselves and for our neighbors. So that would not be an accurate conclusion based on this one particular grant. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Tammy. I just want to follow up on that quick response. The president said about an hour ago, we are going to be helping. We've already alerted the people. And you're saying, of course, you're waiting if and when those requests come in. So for the disaster response teams. So just wondering if you could clarify, is the State Department going to be doing anything else to help? Are there financial resources that are being devoted to these impacted countries? And then can you also just say what governments you are in contact with?
Well, again, the president, as you noted, had made some comments regarding that, which is terrific. Again, another indication that while the State Department does work on all these issues in general, of course, the president's going to make decisions about where we go and who we assist. When it comes to what we are waiting for here or looking for here, it could be different than what's happening at the White House. And of course, I would refer you to the White House for further information in that regard. Very specific messaging, though, this morning from the State Department with what I was watching internally and to me is that we are ready and we stand ready and we will be ready when the requests emerge. And that's what I know, and that's what will happen. Yeah. All right. Yes.
Just staying on USAID or USAID.
Sure.
Today, USAID Foreign Service Officers received a reduction in force notice. This is hundreds of officers who are based abroad for USAID. Can you confirm that all Foreign Service Officers' positions will be terminated now and that they will all be coming home? And do you have or will there be transparency on how much it's going to cost to bring home hundreds of USAID Foreign Service Officers home, including their families, those, as you know, that have been based abroad and have their whole lives integrated into different countries abroad. Some of them have been working abroad for many, many years.
Yes. The Secretary has mentioned throughout this process, I've mentioned to you, that with any major change, there's going to be disruption. This particular review and project to assess the nature of waste and fraud and abuse and whether or not these programs and the grants align with America's priorities has been public news, worldwide news. We've discussed it openly. We've seen what's happened. And so it's something that I think most people, we've been waiting for this conclusion. It has arrived. I can't speak to the number of people who will not be a Foreign Service officer at this point. I can't say if it's going to be every single one. There'll be a point where I don't have to speak about fluid situations and things that are changing and moving every day. But of course, this is it's a restructuring essentially. And there's going to be, from one statement made, that there'll be from USAID and a statement about the last mission, if you will, is that like any restructuring, there will inevitably be disruptions. From Secretary Rubio down, we are committed to ensuring that USAID personnel remain safe and that the agency's ongoing life-saving aid programs remain both intact and operational. And it's something that we're committed to. There are periods of time for blocks of individuals to come home and to be separated. But it's dynamic when you're looking at such a reorganization that's going to happen. We will, I'm sure, with this being a public story, have more information every day. And when that's possible, as I seek it out, I will bring it to you.
And just one on the RF,
Sure.
This note also said that employees will be separated from the Foreign Service effective from the 1st of July. Does that mean that they are not guaranteed an opportunity to apply for jobs?
Well, no, that's not true. There will be jobs that then can be applied for by those who have been separated. I can't tell you how many of those will exist, or even the structure of what that is, but there's been a very specific note that for the jobs that then are open, these individuals, or at least some of them, will be able to apply. So that will be part of it as well. Yes, Daphne.
Thank you. On what you said on the response to the earthquakes, I just wanted to clarify, is that the disaster assistance response team, the DART that you're referring to?
DARTs. Yes, it's the DART system.
Okay, great. And how quickly would that team be able to get on site given the contract terminations and the cuts at USAID? Will they be able to respond as quickly as they've been able to in the past?
Well, from what I'm told is that what's been happening at USAID has not affected our ability to employ the DART system as we always have. When it comes to where they are and in that particular location, I can't give you a timeline, but clearly, as said repeatedly, we stand ready. And there's an understanding of what the situation is, and that certainly has not been impeded whatsoever. All right. Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely.
And I was also got home at 4 a.m.
Thank you very much.
A lot of the embassies that he's been visiting have also big USAID missions and local staff that are hired for them. So in this reduction, are all the local staff also being fired as you downsize?
Well, the messages I've seen and the guidance I've received is about Foreign Service officers. So I can't speak to where the local staff there fits within that framework. But so if they're not Foreign Service officers, but each mission is in a different dynamic. So I would, I can't speak to that at this point.
And one other question on another topic, Carrie Lake is talking about firing about almost 700 journalists at VOA. For those who are visa holders and from countries that where it might be dangerous for them to return.
Yes.
What's the State Department doing, like, to give them time to apply for asylum, or what kind of programs are in place to help people like in that?
Yes,
position?
I mean, this is a recurring question. It's an important one, and it's good for people in this situation and other situation. The visa dynamic for people involved in this situation is no different than everyone else who has a visa. That if you're here on a work visa and your job ends, some people have gotten another job on that framework and have then reapplied and have gotten a visa for that new job. If that's not going to happen, of course, there's like a 30-day period of time for you to take action about going home, going to your home country, or not. But then you would be here without a visa illegally. If you are from a country and you cannot return because of fear of what will occur to you if returning to that country, you can apply for asylum. This is true for everyone who holds a visa, who loses that visa, and believes that they would be in trouble going back to their home country. that is an option, and that is something that they can do as well if that's a case that they face. All right. But, sir, right there in the glasses.
Thank you very much. So,
Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Sticking with USAID,
Thank you.
one of its crucial functions was getting humanitarian supplies into Gaza during the conflict there and during the ceasefire. Now, the last tranche of funding that it paid to the partners in the region was end of January. So there's a kind of block here. Will state be taking over this type of function come July the 1st? And what is going to happen for the funding for the partners applying that humanitarian relief in Gaza in the interim?
Well, we're at a state where Congress has just been notified that this transition is happening. I can't speak to the decisions that'll be made once that decision occurs through USAID as it exists and how it moves into state. So that's the process that's happening right now. So I don't have something for you on that. But we also know that that dynamic is very complicated, as we've talked about every day, importantly, and it remains complicated. And of course, aid can immediately move through that situation through all of our regional partners, people who are concerned. If Hamas were to release its hostages and lay down its arms, how many times does that need to be reminded? Because that's the solution. And when that does occur, as we saw with the first element of the ceasefire, is that the region cares about this, the nations in the region, the world cares, the United States of America cares, to where its leadership is involved in this as a main North Star of what needs to be solved. All right, yes, ma'am, in the blue, in the blue.
Thank you very much.
Can I follow up? No, we're moving on. We'll see what we can do here.
Thank you. Going back to the detention of Turkish student Rümeysa Öztürk, because I want to get a clear understanding of why she was detained and on what grounds her visa was revoked. So Rümeysa's lawyer, family, and friends deny the claims made by the administration that she violated the U.S. law. Her lawyer states that Rümeysa has not been accused of committing any crime, and they say she was detained solely for writing an article criticizing Israel. What is your response to that? Was she detained just because she wrote an article expressing her views?
I will not, as many of you already know, I will not speak about something that's in the courts, that's being adjudicated. So that's not going to happen here. I can point to Secretary Rubio's remarks about this on the plane to the reporters as we were returning home last night, is that the DHS, which manages this framework, clearly felt that she had committed crimes that required her detention. And now that will be adjudicated in court, but it's a framework that we would not be commenting on in any regard, regardless of the situation or whom it happens to. As you've noted, it is playing out in court with representatives, and that's where it's going to be.
Is there any possibility that you might make this evidence?
I am not here to comment on what's going to happen in a courtroom or the people who are involved in that court case. It's not my position. It certainly is beyond my purview, and we're going to leave it there. Yes, sir. In the middle.
Thank you, Tammy. Yesterday, Secretary Rubio spoke about his meeting with Turkish Foreign Minister and the theme of that meeting earlier this week. But my question is that have they talked about the peace process between Turkish government and the Kurdish fighters in Turkey, and the peace process between Kurds and Turkish? Is it something, the matter of your concern?
Here's what I think we know. And again, the secretary spoke about this a little bit also on the plane. He enjoys speaking to the press. And that is helpful for us when it comes to transparency and the American people knowing what's going on. I, of course, and I know why you ask, and everyone wants to know, but I'm not in a position where I'm going to speak about the nature of a conversation between the Secretary of State of the United States and the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, or anyone else in a position in any country where there's discussions about any kind of dynamic involving governance and the choices that those governments make. What I can say, of course, as we know, is that Turkey is an ally, a member of NATO, and the conversations we have are often and deal with issues that are of importance to both countries. So I'm going to leave it there. So yes, sir, with the glasses in the back here.
Oh, thank you. Sergey Yumatov with TASS News Agency.
Uh-huh.
My question is on Russia and Ukraine. When do you expect the next round of consultations between the American and Russian delegations to occur?
Well, we know, of course, that we have our teams that have returned from the last Saudi Arabian technical framework of what they were working on there. The Secretary has noted in some of his comments that now we have to take a look at what's been accomplished and what we need to be doing, and we will decide at that point about how we proceed. All right. All right. Yes, sir.
Can I move to Lebanon?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you, Tammy. Ahmed Hazim, Al Jazeera. Today, there was some missiles fired in northern Israel from Lebanon. Israel retaliated with airstrikes and artillery in the south and even in the capital, Beirut. My question is that the ceasefire agreement, in it, there is a mechanism for reporting violation or alleged violation of the agreement itself, the ceasefire itself. This mechanism is led by the United States, will include France, UNIFIL, and both parties have to report any violations to the cease agreement. Was this mechanism implemented in this incident?
Well, I can say a few things about this, including Israel is defending its people and interests by responding to rocket attacks from terrorists in Lebanon. As part of the cessation of hostilities agreement, the government of Lebanon is responsible for disarming Hezbollah, and we expect the Lebanese armed forces to disarm these terrorists to prevent further hostilities. The reason that any attacks have happened is because terrorists launched rockets into Israel from Lebanon. That is a violation of the cessation of hostilities. It is a violation of the ceasefire when terrorist groups, when armed groups shoot rockets into Israel. Whether it's Hezbollah or whether it's Palestinian groups like Hamas, it does not matter. Israel has to respond as the United States would have to respond, or any other country would have to respond in this kind of situation. We stand by Israel, of course, and it's a dynamic that also continues to unfold. But I think it's pretty clear that this is the responsibility of the Lebanese armed forces to disarm the terrorists who are preventing, in order for us to prevent further hostilities. Yes, sir, in the middle.
Follow-up. Thank you very much. Several human rights organizations and the media reported that many civilian activities have been arrested in Iranian Kurdistan for participating in Nowruz celebrations. Have you received any reports on this matter, and how would you to describe human rights record in Iran?
Yes, yes, we are aware of those reports that the Iranian regime has been arresting Iranian Kurds for participating in those celebrations. The regime is one of the world's worst violators of human rights, oppressing the Iranian people to maintain its grip on power and curtailing their exercise of fundamental freedoms. In Iran, the freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and religion are completely ignored. The regime unjustly executes more people than any other country, persecutes members of religious and ethnic minority groups, and uses tactics like arbitrary arrest and torture and other violations to intimidate political opponents and squash dissent. We will continue to support and defend the human rights of the people of Iran against the regime's continued human rights abuses and authoritarian repression. All right. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Tammy. Very quick question. Axios reported yesterday that a new U.S. proposal was submitted to reignite the ceasefire talks and so on. Can you share with us anything about the status of this peace proposal that was submitted by the United States? Is it gaining traction? What is next?
Yes, I can't speak to that today, but we are, again, next week returning we're going to have a Monday briefing, and I have a feeling you might have another question, and I will be answering your question tomorrow, but we'll do that. Yes, Daphne.
Can I follow up on?
No, we're going to Daphne here, but yes, thank you.
Just on the Panama Canal today, China's
the Panama Canal. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's okay. We're here. We're good.
Okay. Today, China's market regulator said it will carry out an antitrust review on the Hong Kong's CK Hutchinson's proposed sale of 2 Panama ports to BlackRock to, as Beijing said, protect fair competition and safeguard public interests. What is the U.S. response to that move by Beijing, and what's your message to Panama, which has an audit pending over the company's concessions to operate those ports?
All righty, so we are aware of the comments made by China. It's also no surprise that the CCP is upset at this acquisition, which will reduce their control over the Panama Canal area. We are also glad to see U.S. investors acquire a controlling stake in the Panama Ports Company, which owns and operates the ports of Balboa and Cristobal at either end of the Panama Canal. So we would refer you to BlackRock and CK Hutchison for more information about the agreement itself. And we refer you to the government of Panama regarding its role in ensuring that the sale complies with Panamanian laws and regulations. So yes, we're aware, and it's not a surprise, certainly. All right, yes, pink jacket.
Thank you. Back to Turkey. Is there a confirmed date for President Erdogan's visit to the White House in April out of Foreign Minister Fidan's meeting with Secretary Rubio on Tuesday?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, the White House may have more information on that for you.
They are not very responsive.
In the white shirt here. You just sat down, sir. One moment, please. In the white shirt, please.
Thank you very much. On Georgia.
I'm sorry.
On Georgia, if I may.
Okay,
question.
sure.
Thank you very much. Have you had any communication with the ruling party in Georgia? And if so, could you share what type of communication exists between you now? You know that the situation in Georgia is very difficult. The Georgian people and the international community do not recognize the election results. Peaceful protesters have been arrested, as well as an independent journalist who's currently in jail. So given these circumstances, what is your perspective on the situation in Georgia?
I do want to answer that. And as a result, we're going to take that back and we will have an answer for you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry to jump to another region, but I wanted to ask.
It's everywhere. There's news everywhere.
Yeah. South Sudan.
Sure.
Do you have the State Department have any comment on the situation there, which is on the brink of plunging back into the civil war? The vice president was put under house arrest. Yeah, the situation is pretty dire. So I was wondering if the U.S. State Department has any comment on that.
Well, of course, there's been news on this, the dire situation, I think, throughout the area, and then whether it's North Darfur, et cetera. So we are concerned about a number of issues that are unfolding. And that too, I'm going to have to get some updated information on, because what I'm seeing here is, I'd like something new, some updates there. So we'll have that, we'll bring that back for you for sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jahan Saibali from ARY News, Pakistan.
Okay.
For the last few months, we have seen a rise in terrorist activities in Pakistan. Hundreds of civilians and security officials lost their lives. And Pakistan is a partner country, recently handed over the most wanted terrorists to US authorities. And these all terrorist networks are based in Afghanistan, TTP, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Pakistan is kind of war against terrorism. So how you guys see this kind of situation, like all those terrorist networks established and working under the umbrella of Taliban?
Well, it's a dynamic where we're aware of certain problems, human rights issues, et cetera. But again, we seem to be in a series here of things that I want to take back on this. So I'm going to take that back. If you don't mind, we're going to go on.
Okay,
and you know what I do want to discuss here, sir. And if someone has, I want to discuss the Hezbollah sanctions that we have going on as well. I know that many of you might be interested in that as well. But let's go on. I'm not going to start to try to direct what we're saying here. Well, let's go on. Let's go on here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to ask about the Hezbollah. You can talk a little bit about the sanctions and also the Lebanese foreign minister with the Syrian one signed an agreement for the border in Syria between Syria and Lebanon. If you have also something on that.
Yes, yes, we do. So first, let's start here with Hezbollah. The United States is designating 5 individuals and 3 entities pursuant to Executive Order 13224 as amended for ties to U.S. designated Hezbollah or individuals designated through this action. The action advances President Trump's maximum pressure policy on Iran and its proxies. We will continue to disrupt the complex schemes Hezbollah uses to conceal its illicit behavior and acquire revenue to fund its malign activities. And we will, the United States, will take decisive action against anyone involved in facilitating Iran's oil sales at any stage of the supply chain. We are exerting maximum pressure on Iran and its terrorist proxies under the president's maximum pressure policy to disrupt Iran's destabilizing activities. The Department of Treasury is designating, again, 5 individuals, 3 entities for supporting a sanctions evasion network affiliated with Hezbollah's finance team. This action is part of the United States' effort to deny Hezbollah access to revenue and to cut off the terrorist group's access to the international financial system. Today's designations support the whole of government policy of maximum pressure on Iran and its terrorist proxies, such as Hezbollah, as detailed in the National Security Presidential Memorandum 2 of February 4th. We will, the United States, use all of its tools to disrupt activities of individuals and companies supporting Hezbollah. The United States is committed to working with partners to disrupt terrorism and terrorist financing worldwide. All right. Yes, sir. And this will be it. This will be the last. So make it good.
I'm going to go back to the very first question. Just
all right. All right. Sure. Make a good circle.
The issue of Ukrainian children. The president was asked about Ukraine just a couple of hours ago, and he did highlight the issue of Ukrainian children.
He did. He did.
It looks like this is something he cares about. To deliver on the president's stated goal, even if this funding will run out of this very particular program, can you assure us that you will be seeking, supporting alternative programs, at least, to deliver on that?
Well, I think the biggest, most amazing program can be the most powerful man in the world caring about the resolution of the issue. That is something that nothing can match. And that's what we have now. And you are correct. I think it's clear for anyone who listens to President Trump that he is a serious person, addresses issues that matter to him directly, that he knows will make an impact on the quality of people's lives. That is the Trump effect. And the fact that he is successful in the choices he makes and that he is relentless in making them work has an impact on the resolution of those issues. As far as what mechanisms he will use, I don't know. He's the president of the United States. He's the best deal maker in the world. And those children matter to him. And it matters that that issue is resolved like it does to every decent human being on this planet. President Trump represents the notion of that outrage and the desire to solve the problem in the process of getting to the end of this horrible carnage that has gone on. So yes, I can't tell you what mechanism he would choose. We do know that he's chosen a Secretary of State who feels as passionately about the resolution of these issues as he does. We are going to continue to see that unfolding. And it is, while horrible issues we're facing, it is an exciting time because we have leadership that are tired of the status quo, want results, care about people, and are going to do what it takes to get results. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you also on Monday. We'll see you on Monday. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.